tells us one. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. For those of you watching at home or folks here in the audience, the school committee has just returned from executive session where we discussed litigation strategy. We will now continue with the regular school committee meeting. We do have interpretation services available this evening in Mandarin and Cantonese. Will the Mandarin interpreter please introduce themselves? Would you please say it out loud? Okay, so if anyone needs Mandarin interpretive services, they are there. Would the Cantonese interpreter please introduce himself? Yes? Thank you, if folks heard that. Okay, so as I said, if anyone needs Mandarin or Cantonese, the interpreters are available in the back. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live by Boston City TV, Comcast Channel 24, and RCN Channel 13. It will also be rebroadcast at a later date. If anyone wishes to sign up for public comment, please see our executive, Please, is anyone still out front? Okay, so if anyone needs to sign up for public comment, please see our executive secretary, Ms. Sullivan, right here. Sign up for public comment. We'll close at 6:30 p.m. Move on to approval of the minutes. If the minutes were approved as presented, hard copies will be made available immediately in the hallway with the other handouts. If changes are made, you may access the minutes tomorrow on the BPS website. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the June 21st, 2017 school committee meeting as presented. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. It sounds like a second from Dr. Uriarte.
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion or objection to the motion? Any objection to approving the minutes by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the minutes were approved. We'll move on now to the superintendent's report. I present to our superintendent, Dr. Tommy Chang.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman O'Neill. Good evening, school committee. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening to this beautiful summer evening here in Boston. We in Boston Public Schools do not slow down during summer. There's a lot of great work going on around summer learning, which I will get to later on this evening. And also in central office, we spend a lot of time planning, reflecting about the previous school year, planning for the future, and then just recharging for the next school year. 2 weeks ago, actually last week, several members of the BPS community, including myself, spent 1 week at the Harvard's Public Education Leadership Project, and that is the PELP, P-E-L-P, is a collaboration between Harvard's Business School and Harvard Education School. They bring 12 districts nationwide together to do leadership development, to study together, to address problems or practices, and create strategic plans. And so very, very excited about the opportunity to join 11 other districts from across the country again to participate in PELP. I want to thank a few people really quickly who volunteered their time to spend a week at the Harvard Business School. Craig Martin, who is one of our principals, Dr. Michelle Shannon, our chief of schools, Albert Elise, who is a teacher at the Higginson Lewis, Christine Cronin, who is our executive director of elementary school education, Paul Tritter, who is Boston Teachers Union Director of Professional Learning, Maurice Edward Vincent, and Christine Landry, who are instructional superintendents. So we all were part of the PELP team. So I want to thank them very quickly. Dan, do we have the... Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Also, in Boston Public Schools, we are committed to staff wellness because we believe we are well, we are better able to serve our students and our community. So I thought this was kind of fun, just show some pictures of the BPS community coming around. This is a picture of us playing softball. We're playing in the City League this summer. Many of our staff are also really participating on BPS on the Move, which is a running group that includes runners of all abilities. So, you know, we're recharging. We're getting well, or weller, if that's even a word.
More well.
More well, yes, of course. But most importantly, I think we're doing a lot of planning while we are also providing some pretty incredible services for young people this summer. And I'm going to get to that in 1 second. I want to share some updates with the school committee. I'm going to start with Revolution Food. On Tuesday, we made an exciting announcement that Revolution Food will be our new prepared meal provider for both breakfast and lunch in Boston Public Schools. And they will service 85 schools that do not currently have in-service kitchens over the next 3 years. Revolution Foods is committed to providing healthy, fresh, and delicious meals to all students. They adhere to very strict standards around clean labels, and that means no artificial ingredients, no trans fats, and no high fructose corn syrup. The company is committed to using only fresh food, which will virtually eliminate the district's reliance on frozen food, except for emergency situations. And they will also use local and regional produce and work with many of our local and national community partners. You see a couple of pictures on that. I want to thank Laura Benavides, who is our Executive Director of Food Services. She has helped shepherd this process. This company has a long track record of providing deliberate outreach to students and families to gather feedback. And even during this entire process, we had 2,500 tasting tests with young people. And I'm excited about also picking Revolution Foods because of their commitment to equity issues and the kind of tailoring of food to the cultural identities of students. So we will be hosting many engagement activities in partnership with Revolution Food at the beginning of the school year, and just excited to be working very closely with them. They have they own many of the values that are aligned to our values. So with that, I just want to make sure you all knew we're moving forward with a new food vendor for the next 3 years. Next, quick update. I want to take a moment to celebrate the life of an extraordinary retired BPS educator. Her name is Charlotte Feldman. She was a longtime Hyde Park resident, and she recently passed away at the age of 98. She was a graduate of Boston Girls Latin School. Charlotte's life was dedicated to music education. She retired in 1982 after 42 years teaching in BPS, spending many years at the Edison School. It was a time of turmoil of desegregation, and Charlotte was able to bring students together across all racial lines through the power of music. Later, she served as the assistant director of music for BPS and oversaw music initiatives district-wide. She was the daughter of Russian Jewish immigrants. She was a subscriber to the Boston Symphony Orchestra for 79 years. And she is believed to be the longest continuous subscriber in Boston Symphony Orchestra history. And this month, some of Charlotte's personal collection of musical instruments were donated to the Chittick Music Program, including a beautifully preserved glockenspiel, yes, enabling this generation and future generations to continue benefiting from her legacy. So I just want to take a moment to recognize Charlotte. One last update before we get into bright spots. We should be very proud that after many years of advocacy, that we will be opening up a Haitian Creole program in Boston Public Schools. And I think this school committee has been providing many regular updates about the Haitian Creole dual language program that will be starting at the Mannahunt. We've been working with leaders locally, such as Dr. DeGraff from MIT, to start this program. You all understand that dual language programs provide not only academic benefits, but also language and cultural benefits for our young people. We received, and I think all of you received, a letter from parents of the Mannahunt Elementary School community expressing a more close collaboration with parents as we build up this program. And I just want to share publicly, if these parents and other parents of the Mannahunt are listening this evening, we are absolutely committed, and we will continue doing a better job of making sure that you are authentic partners with the school. The principal is committed to meeting with all the parents who shared this letter with us. Mary Driscoll, our instructional superintendent, will be in attendance as well. And I wanted to share also that we are continuing to build up the necessary supports at the school and the staffing as a support to ensure that this is a program, not just a class at the Mannahunt. And so one of the assistant principals at the school is Haitian Creole, speaks Haitian Creole, and is committed to that school and that community, has historically been committed to that community. There are 5 staff members at that school who are Haitian Creole at this moment. We have 2 teaching positions that we are committed to finding individuals who are Haitian Creole and ELL certified to join the staff at that school, and we'll continue to keep the school committee updated on the work at the Manhunt Elementary. So those are my updates, and I have some quick bright spots to share with folks. First is a photo from Hale Reservations. We are getting great updates about the 5th quarter initiative. And what the 5th quarter is, it's a focus on enrichment and academics side by side in the summer programming for some of our most needy students. And so we are nearly at 100% capacity for all these seats. We are seeing high attendance rates also at all 31 sites that are using this model. We are seeing high attendance rates at our other 110 additional sites serving more than 12,000 students this summer. We also see a gap between the time students enroll in a program and when the program actually beginning, and it appears that our hard work to close that gap is beginning to pay off. And I want to share some photos with you. First, I think this one is from World Ocean School. Yep, and the World Ocean School is partnering with Boston Day and Evening Academy to take 19 BDEA students on a 3-week sailing trip to Nova Scotia. So the teacher there, Aaron, is literally sailing with these kids over a course of 3 weeks in Nova Scotia. It's a blend of obviously incredible like real life application, but also like very intense academics as well. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. I can't imagine these young people not having their lives transformed because of this. And so they're learning things about mechanics of sailing, oceanography, climate change, and obviously doing a lot of great community service. So incredible, incredible highlight. Also, 10 students at the Burke High School recently spent 3 days at Skidmore College in upstate New York to participate in College Explorer event. These students are part of the College for Every Student program, which engages students in 3 core practices: mentoring, leadership through service, and pathways to college and career. The visit gave the students an opportunity to experience a bit of college life. They listened to lectures from professors. They actually lived in the dorm rooms, stayed overnight in the dorm rooms, and attended workshops on the college application process. So incredible eye-opening experience for these 10 students at the Burke. Next, bright spots. 2 of our students recently received a full ride from Vertex to attend UMass Amherst. Hannah May, who graduated from the O'Brien School of Math and Science, along with Saeed Shah, who graduated from Binka, received these scholarships, and you see them there. Saeed is from Pakistan, where his school was bombed, and his home would often lose electricity, and when this happened, he relied on his lessons from his math and physics classes to create a water-powered electric motor so his families could eat dinner. Incredible. Hannah is determined to work in the pharmaceutical industry in memory of her grandfather who died of cancer. So as you can tell, both of these young people's experiences and identities come very clearly in the work that they want to do. And this scholarship is part of a broad STEM partnership we have with Vertex. It includes hands-on learning, internships, and mentoring opportunities. So I want to thank Vertex, as always, for being an incredible partner to the City of Boston and Boston Public Schools, and congratulate both Saeed and Hannah for their scholarships. One last update. I want to give a special thanks to Earth Watch Institute for their partnership with 5 female students from Boston Latin School. These students are working as citizen scientists conducting archaeological research on the Pueblo Native Americans. And this work is being led by an all-female research team. The BLS students are Katie Bowers, Emma Gredley, Angelica Simonte, Rachel Fan, and Kelly Chin. And these young women are actually using electrical imaging equipment to determine where they are going to dig. And they're hoping to bring the artifacts they find to the Crow Canyon Archaeological Center, where they'll study the way of life for the Pueblos and drawing connections between climate change and its impact on history. And this is another great example of the great summer learning that's going on, BPS, the experiential learning, and we're doing all this work in partnership with all the wonderful organizations that are in the city. So those are my updates and the bright spots for the school committee meeting.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Chang. Any questions or comments for the superintendent? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to receive the superintendent's report. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Oliver Davila. Any discussion or objection to the motion? Any objection to receiving the superintendent's report by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the motion carries. We'll move on now to general public comment. Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. The public comment period is an opportunity for parents and other concerned parties to make brief presentations to the school committee on pertinent school issues. Questions on specific school matters are not answered at this time, but are referred to the superintendent for a later response. Questions on specific policy matters are not answered at this time, but may be the subject of later discussion by the committee. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll remind you when you have 1 minute remaining and then 30 seconds. Those who require interpretation services will be allotted an additional 2 minutes. Speakers may not reassign their time to others. Large groups addressing the same topic are encouraged to consolidate their remarks or select a spokesperson to provide testimony. Written testimony is appreciated and encouraged. Please state your name and affiliation before you begin. TV cameras will only record speakers who face the committee. We have 16 speakers this evening, and we'll begin with Nancy Calcani. She'll be followed by Chanel Steele and Shatira Barr.
Who was the first speaker, Ms. Sullivan?
Nancy Calcani, is she with us? Okay, the next speaker is Chanel Steele.
Is Chanel Steele here?
Okay. Shatira Barr.
Good evening. Yep, please, right up here. That'd be
Please
great.
have a seat. And she'll be followed by Melissa Adams and Tara Register.
This seat is fine, and the microphone will work for you perfectly, hopefully.
Good evening. My name's Shatara Battle. I'm from the App Academy Network. I'm a parent. I do a lot within a few of the schools within Boston, and one of my concerns is Up Academy Dorchester. Excellent school. A lot of progress has been made, and I just wanted to be known that, you know, we would like to continue to have this school so that we can continue to make more progress. Students are growing. We're growing both on the parent side. The parent engagement piece has come a long way within the past couple of years, and I know that it's been brought up, the discussion of Up Academy Dorchester before, and we just need to continue to have that chance to grow as a school, as a parent community, as well as with staff. We've made a lot of positive changes. We have, you know, other parents here. We have some of our students here. And I just want you guys to take into consideration the growth that we're making and continue to give us that chance to grow.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Battle.
Next, we'll hear from Melissa Adams, and she'll be followed by Tara Register and Mary Neal. Is Melissa Adams with us?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Melissa Adams. I'm a parent of the children at Up Academy Dorchester. I'm pretty much just going to reiterate what she said, giving them the opportunity to continue with the school open, because my kids are getting an excellent education from there. I couldn't think of them going anywhere else. So she said for the most part. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tara Register. I am actually a community partner with Up Academy Dorchester. I work for the Family Nurturing Center. I am a coalition coordinator for a community coalition called Dorchester Cares, and I also oversee a family enrichment site, which is a resource center inside Up Academy Dorchester School. So I'm just here to let you know that we are a community partner with the school. We have the resource center, and we have a lot of array of programs in that resource center, Parents Helping Parent Support Groups. We have a parent education program, a 15-week program that we do there. We have parent-child play groups that we do there in the resource center. We also have opportunities for DCF to do supervised visits in our space with their families. And then we are going to be doing more parent cafes and parent workshops. So just a lot of programs inside the resource center to help engage the parents, to help support the families that are in the school. And our partnership over the last year has been really good, and we look forward to really broadening that, doing more with the students, doing more with the families, getting the parents more involved, educating them, and just continuing to strengthen the partnership we have with the school and the collaborations. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mary Neal, and she'll be followed by Rachel Bigger and Daphne Loper.
Quite sure that's Marv Neal. Not a Mary.
I would guess you would know best, sir.
So,
Welcome, Mr. Neal.
I have to tell you that I come here with great disappointment, and that disappointment comes from the fact that my child, at 14 years old, has graduated from Up Academy and has no place in another charter school to go to. Up Academy has taken in 3 of my children, including my daughter here. And I'm very, very pleased with the results of Up Academy. My 14-year-old son, at one point in his life, was very disruptive and had some serious issues around behavior. And working very closely with the staff at Up Academy has turned his behavior around. And I'm really, really excited and proud to say that my son turned his really bad grades around to getting the honor roll on some occasions because of Up Academy. Now, I promise you they didn't pay me to come up here and say this, but Up Academy has been a game changer in my children's lives. And I just want for you all to really take into consideration the progress that has been made. I don't know why there are people that are opposed to charter schools, but I sit here to tell you that Up Academy has done great things for my children. And I hope that they will continue to be able to deliver education to the children in our community. And I really, really hope that they will eventually become a high school, because I think that's real serious. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. And did you want to introduce your daughter? Is she a student at UP?
This is my daughter. Oh, yeah, say
Yeah.
this one or this one.
My name is Savasia,
And what grade are you in?
3rd grade.
Starting in September, you'll be in 3rd grade?
I'm gonna go to the 4th.
So you're on to 4th now, all right.
Yep.
Congratulations, welcome. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Neal.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Rachel Bigger, and she'll be followed by Daphne Loper and Nicole Perryman.
Hi, I'm Rachel Bigger, and I am a parent of a student at Up Academy Dorchester. And I agree, my son was shy, and we've been with Up Academy for 4 years. And he's no longer shy, he's branched out, and the staff, as well as each teacher, has been excellent with my child. They've been patient, and the communication has always been excellent. And I agree, they do have a resource center there that it's always posted. All the resources they have is any notice that they have is posted, and it's out there, and it's not hidden. Any parent, anybody walking in the halls can see. And I appreciate Up Academy, and I think that they should get renewed because they do the community a great service. I agree, I would wish they would go into high school too, because my son loves it there, and he's made a lot of friends, from being shy and alone to branching out into being very social. And that's all, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Figure.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Daphne Lopes, and I actually have a long history with the UP Network. My son actually started at the John P. Holland School when it was closing down. And when UP first came in, I'm from Missouri. You have to show me what it is that you're telling me you're bringing me. So I went to UP Academy Dorchester, and I had one of the scheduled school visits, and then I went back without a scheduled school visit. And what I saw both times was the same thing. At UP Academy Dorchester and at UP Academy Holland, they are training these youth for high school and for middle school. I'm at UP Academy Boston now, so when they come to me, they are ready. At my school, we are now training them for high school and for college. I'm just coming here to, from everyone else, I hope we go to a high school. Do you hear us? We need a high school. Number two, my son was a shy child as well. Now he's stepping out. He's just started as Basilio and Noli Me Tangere, a play that was just at the Strand Theater. He's speaking up, he's speaking out, he's trying to emulate the men that he sees in the school. I'm just asking you, from UAB to UAD, please don't break my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopes.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Nicole Perryman, and she'll be followed by Tiana Morris.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Perryman. I am a school site council co-chair for Madison Park, and I'm also citywide parent council co-chair. I apologize for not having a folder or a clip to hold those petitions. I was running around doing a lot of summer activity things with my children earlier today. So I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to sit before you and humbly request that you guys revise the home-based assignment system. And those petitions are about 195, and they're from various stakeholders in the community. And we're asking the school committee to change it because we feel like it's not an equitable system for children in low-income communities, and those children are predominantly African-American or Latino. We know that home base, because of our enrollment system, home base is the driving force for funding in schools. And we also know that home base is another tool, if you will, to help with the Build BPS initiative. And we just want to ensure that our children are not set up for 30 years of struggle. And we believe that if home base continues as it is, that's what will happen with our children. Right now, the Build BPS initiative, we know that a lot of it is reliant on school reconfiguration and school closures, and we understand that closures are necessary with the condition of the buildings, but we don't agree with the methods that are being used to reconfigure our schools and eventually close some of the schools. And the home base, knowing that school closures are imminent, we feel like children transitioning into grades from K0 to K2, the 6th grade and 9th grade, are being robbed of priority of choice of a school that will remain open after the home base, or rather after the Build BPS initiative is completed. And so we humbly request that you guys change it. And when you do change it and go for the revisions, we ask that 50% of the members on the task force or the group
30
that would
seconds.
change home base be from families of low-income areas or from families currently enrolled in underperforming schools.
Thank you, Ms. Perryman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Tiana Morris. I'm actually here in support of Nicole. We serve together on the CPC, and it's just coming here today and picking up all of these papers. You know, we struggle to get parents involved, and I feel like I don't know how we can make this process easier, how we can make it easier for parents to understand what's going on, because it seems like you have to know so much just to have an opinion. Like, it's too much. So just coming here to support her, when I picked up all these papers, I was like, wow, this is a lot. But it just reminded me of the struggles that we have to get parents involved, and how can we empower them when this process just is so intimidating. And parents, they always have something to say. We talk all the time off, you know, in settings unlike this. So how can we empower parents? How can we make this process a little more easier for parents that are kind of disengaged to understand? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morris.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Wen Xing Zi, and she'll be followed by Karen Ng.
Actually, my name is Karen. I'm coming with a whole bunch of Chinese parents. They don't speak the language, so I'm going to help them to translate it. Would that be okay?
Yes, of course.
Thanks.
Hello， 我係 K 村，我個仔係叫梁明，哈佛間school 讀書嘅。
Hello, my name is Kui Ching, and my son Liang Ming is going to Harvard Kent.
我哋昆士小學係我哋社區嘅學校，大部分新移民嘅家庭係住喺我哋半米外嘅範圍內。
Josiah Quincy School is our community school. Majority of new immigrants were living in this school within 0.5 miles.
應該係有優先權嘅，而唔係需要去抽籤排位。好似我哋新移民係有語言嘅障礙，係需要特別嘅照顧。
For the majority of family living in the 0.5 mile, we think that they should guarantee a seat in the Josiah Quincy School. It's not go through the lottery system.
既然昆士小學係我哋 SEI 呢個服務，點解我哋半米牛就行到我哋嘅社區呢？學校讀書都唔俾我哋小朋友喺社區去讀書，就去到咁遠嘅學校去讀書。
Josiah Quincy is our community school. Why the kids living in this community cannot go to the school but have been assigned to a school further away, and they need bus services. These families also have language barriers. They do have difficulty for communicating with the schools further, not within their communities.
如果有一日學校打電話通知我哋家長，你個小朋友喺學校唔舒服嘅話，叫你去接佢返嚟睇醫生。但係我哋嘅學校咁遠，我哋點趕到去見醫生呢？
When the school called me, my son has a health issue. I need to pick him up right away at the day. I would not be able to get there by myself because it's the distance and also the transportation schedule as well.
好似而家我個仔嘅身體問題出咗，佢喺學校讀咗4年，但係佢而家搞到佢身體差咗，每日都要佢咁早去等候車，同埋去到學校已經冇巴士，冇早餐食，同埋冇中午食。
My son Liang Ming is currently have health issues. We also gave the letter to the Boston Public Schools office already. He has a nutrition sickness problem. He has to take a early bus schedule to go to the school every day. However, the bus usually late and he will not be able to have breakfast. And also only have a lunch for the day. And then sometimes the bus could take our son back home kind of late as well. He won't get home until 6.
即係一直至到6點先翻到屋企，搞到佢有而家嘅身體出咗問題，有頭痛同埋頭暈、營養嗰啲問題出現咗。
My son have a lot of health issue now, not only just nutrition sickness, he also have headache, dizziness, and neck pain for the past years.
而家佢嘅家庭醫生要佢每一個星期都要翻去見醫生。我哋作為家長都唔知點去做，係咪每一日都要去咁遠嘅學校接佢翻嚟睇醫生呢？
My son's primary care doctor and the nutritionist require him to see them every week to monitor his progress for his nutrition problem. His health problem getting worse and worse.
我哋趕去接佢翻嚟，醫生都放工啦，咁遙遠嘅路程，我哋點睇到醫生呢？加上佢又唔想每一日都去曠課，去缺席翻嚟睇醫生。
We having difficulty to take him to the doctor weekly because I cannot get there on time to take him to the doctor's appointment. Every time I get there, pick him up, I have to wait for an hour, a bus to get him back to in town for the doctor's office. Doctor's visit ended up the doctor appointment has passed it by the time that we get in town.
30 seconds.
We don't want him to absence for every week to get to see the doctors. And he is a very good kid in school. He is a very good in academic as well.
所以我哋喺呢度即係再三強調 BBS 應承我哋嘅要求，重新安排學校，即係 BBS 都唔想去摧殘一個小朋友嘅前途。
I'm here to request BPS to rearrange the assignment for my son to help him to be able to see the Dr. Willie and also succeed in his academic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chin. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Yes, Karen, will you tell Mrs. Chin that Mr. Consalvo will talk with her at the end?
Okay.
Okay, the superintendent's chief of staff back there in the corner. Thank you.
Sure. 一陣間佢會有人幫你同你哋傾個問題嚇。
Are you speaking for any other parents as well?
Yeah, all of them.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I'm really,
that's okay.
I'm not that good, so.
You're doing just fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thanks.
doing this.
Hi, good evening. I'm Susan Wu. I'm the Harvard Khan's parents. And so I presented, my English not that good very well. I'm the assistant with the help with Karen. And then the first story is I presenting for John Wu's mom also. And then we are together. We are neighbor and same school to Harvard Khan. And then since we got the letter from June and saying no bus transportation for next year. So we came here to the home center. The home center have no answer and then moved us to transportation and then transportation say no any help and then send me back to Boston Public School Home Center. Then we send them to school with the principal also, back and forward the whole month since from June. And then finally right now, just since yesterday, the principals tell us that's the automatic process mistake. So it's only have already 1 month, the whole month. We have to take day off to come back here to ask the question, the answer, but nobody give us the answer. So it's very messy and confusing for our parents. We are helpless, and then we don't know what to do because there will be no bus for the kids. And then I think it's very messy, so the parents who can ask and help, and so we still continue to believe the home center can help us. So that's another question for the transportation.
Actually, we have the letter that we got from the BPS and also the letter for the parent Lau Ming about his health issue and everything. We would like to give to you guys a copy.
Okay, so I have two sons. So the oldest one is from K1 at Harvard Kent till right now. Next year will be 4th grade. So in January, he was invited to the advanced book class. And then we got the assignment and a school choice assignment on, actually it's no school choice for us. And then we have to come back here to walk into the home center to ask, to request why we don't have any school choice. And at that moment, they say, should be from the classroom teacher, but we never know that. And then, so we just register right here at the home center. Then we got the result in very late May, so actually the early of June. And then we had all the Harvard Kent students be invited to advanced class right now only on the waiting list. We are not getting in. And my neighbor student living around me, and then they are at the Quincy School. They have the advanced book class, and then they say they are not invited, but they get into the advanced book class as well. And that's kind of very unfair. And then we come here to the home center to ask why the waiting list on that, and then no one can get in, and they say they cannot have the list from the school. The school have the different list. So if the school have their own assignment process, so why we have to come be here? We have to set up the home center for the parents to register and then get the assignment. It's kind of very massive if the school have the assignment different with the public school. And then why we came here and that they always have different answer for us. That's kind of the confusion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Consalvo is waiting to speak with you about
Okay,
this.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, Ms. Sullivan. Oh,
Sorry, one more.
Hello，我係昆士嘅家長。
Hello, I am a Quincy School's parent.
我今日上嚟係同大家講下我個仔。
I'm here to talk about my son's issue.
喺昆士市區整咗即係學校評估評咗出嚟，係我個仔咧係需要特別服務嘅，但係即係昆士做咗心理評估同埋教育評估都做咗出嚟，兩個都做咗出嚟，但係我呢個醫生兩個醫生都鑑定咗，都話我個仔有呢個需要，但係依家昆士學校嗰度，佢話仲要我去第二地方做嗰個獨立評估。
Okay. My son has psychology report and also a school assessment done through the PPS school. He already diagnosis that he needs a special needs. And also, all this report have been evaluated by 2 professional doctors and also said that he needs a special need. And now, we got a letter from BPS said that my son cannot get into an inclusion class. And also they want, the PPS is giving her money, asked her to go see a individual professional for another evaluation. And we wondering why that should do that. Why are you paying for additional evaluation or analysis when you already have the report in front of you?
咁佢依家即係學校叫我去做嗰個評估，佢學校依家放咗假，佢又未有答覆我話俾錢我去做。咁我依家即係咁講，我係同你哋講話，究竟我要唔要去做嗰即係嗰個評估，佢哋有冇錢俾我去做咧？如果唔俾錢我，我根本上係冇錢去做嘅。
BPS have been tell me that you guys will provide funding for me to do another analysis or for a professional, but when? Because now the school year is ended. When you guys going to be providing the funding? When I should get the evaluation done? Where my son should go next year? How can he have help for next year's school years? We hope that BPS can give us a direct answer.
同埋我想問下，點解嗰時嗰度自己做個評估出嚟都唔可以承認話自己做嘅，點解仲要我出去外邊又做一個咧？
Also, I would like, I have a concern about like Josiah Quincy School already done a evaluation for my son. Why you guys have to have me to do another one from outside professionals? Is that one is not enough? It's not professional enough? 係咁係咪？你講 thank you 啊。
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, Mr. Consalvo will be speaking with you, Nancy, and the other parents after the meeting, and he's pulling in some other BPS people as well.
And continue on, I have one more thing to talk about because I'm one of the person I signed up for to speak up. It's also regarding Josiah Quincy schools. You have been hearing all these comments from all these parents now. Josiah Quincy School Chinese SEI program, I have a comparison chart here I want to give to you guys. I want to talk about the seats available for the SEI program from school year, fiscal year 16 to 2017, and compare it to fiscal year 17, 2018, which is the past school year and coming school year. So the Chinese SEI program, they have 20 kids for 20 seats available for K1. That would be easier. So they
I
have.
suggest you'll want to put that down right in front,
Put it down
please.
so they can see.
Perfect, thank you.
So you can see that K1 and K2's seat available haven't been changing from the past school year and coming school year. However, the first grade have been changing from 50 plus 5 at 2 classes plus 1 inclusion classes to like 50 students, only 2 classes. Why 5, 6 less? Chinese SEI program inclusion class is no longer available. Why? Seems like that parents need a special needs. She should be in the inclusion class, right? How come? We want an answer from our BPS. Who has the authority to change that, or is it, what kind of a decision, why are you guys making this decision? And also, like, you can see from K2, they have 50 plus 5 students this year, but next year they only have 56. What the other 5 students can go? Are they all become general ed? Are they really ready for it? We want to understand that process as well. Another one is, you can see from this chart, the third grade is changing from 50 to 40 plus 5, another 5, 6 less. So suppose that was other SEI program student can be moving back from like other school to the community, the school in this community. However, they cannot because the seats available have been changing. So, and also we don't know if the 4th grade and the 5th grade will be still 25 kids for one classes or not. Or are they changing to 15 plus 5 this year? Why? We want to know, is the BPS going to kick off this SEI program or eliminate it completely? Actually, Josiah Quincy Schools really is located in a community. Majority of the family are from China, and they also speak the language, and they really need this SEI program to be there in place. We hope that PPS can give us straight answer why this changing happening for next year and wasn't have been communicated to the parents ahead of time.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Karen, I did not catch your last name, so I apologize for just calling you
My
that
name
way.
is Karen Ng.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
And
you.
also I can give that to you.
Thank you. Mr. Neal, I believe that concludes our speakers for general public comment.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank you all for attending tonight and for speaking. And as I said, particularly to the parents who spoke to us about issues with either the Quincy or the Harvard-Kent, Mr. Consalvo, who is the superintendent's chief of staff, is back there willing to speak with you all individually on that issue, and we'll be taking up the up matter in a couple minutes. So thank you all for attending. Our first action item this evening is the consent calendar, which consists of grants for approval totaling $10,024,709 and 2 international travel requests. One to Nicaragua for Community Academy of Science and Health, and one to London, England for the Josiah Quincy. At this time, I open up to any questions or comments, questions or discussion from the committee on the consent calendar. Mr. Locanto?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one brief question on one of the grants, the preschool expansion grant. I wanted to understand, I believe that's intended to support 300 seats in community-based partners, and I wanted to understand if those are 300 new seats or 300 existing seats. Is there anyone that can answer that?
Yeah, do we have somebody who's ready to answer that? Yes, okay, great.
How are you?
Hi, I'm Brian Gold from Early Childhood. Thank you for the question. These are, as most 4-year-olds in Boston are in some form of care, either in BPS or in community-based settings. Most of the 300 students are currently in settings already. There are a number of students who were not in any form of formal care prior. But roughly, with the city's demographics, about 10% of all 4-year-olds in Boston are not in formal care. So this brings some of them into the high-quality community-based programs through the PEG grant.
Okay, so when I asked about whether they're new seats or existing seats, I should ask specifically, these are new high-quality seats.
These are, moving them to high-quality seats, yes.
Okay, so this is bringing those community-based seats up to the level that we expect for BPS seats.
Yes, and we've had data that has borne out that they're moving closer to BPS quality for K-1.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for your answers. Any other questions or comments regarding the grants of the international travel requests? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Dean Robinson. We have a second. Any discussion or objection? Any objection to approving the consent calendar by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the consent calendar is approved. Our next action item is the reauthorization of the English Language Learners Task Force. You'll recall at our last meeting, the task force co-chairs, Dr. Uriarte and Ms. Lee, presented their annual update to the committee and requested the reauthorization of the task force for another year. They also recommended 3 new members of the task force, Dr. Andres Alonso, Ms. Farah Asajar, and Dr. Patricia Crane del Galassi. Thank you. It sounds so much better when you say it, Dr. Uriarte. I'm sorry? Galassi? Thank you. All actually extremely accomplished professionals. So at this time, Dr. Uriarte, do you have any final remarks to make?
No, we're, as you know, the person in charge of OELL, Dr. Francis Esparza, is no longer with BPS, so we're now trying to sort of reorient our work for the summer that we were supposed to be doing over the summer, and we have our first meeting today. So we're hoping to pick up the work, but it may take a little bit longer as the transition takes place. So, but we're happy with the new members and looking forward to the next year.
Thank you, and thank you for pointing that out, by the way, Dr. Francis Esparza. And I don't know if you want to say a few words about that, or if Superintendent you do. I think this is perfectly appropriate time to do. The work that she did in her 2 years with the district was excellent. The progress that we saw was amazing with compliance, et cetera. She made a personal decision for family reasons to return back to the Los Angeles area. But we thought very, very highly of her, and she did outstanding work. Superintendent, I'm not sure if you want to say something with regards to that, and that position, which is a key position.
Yes, Dr. Francis Esparza joined the Boston Public Schools team in fall of 2015 to head the Office of English Language Learners, and she has done a tremendous job of bringing a team of individuals together to work on building capacity at school sites, ensuring compliance at the system level, help us get some things in order in terms of our Department of Justice order, working alongside the EL task force, and very excited about the work moving forward about creating very clear, smart goals. Also just doing a lot of great work around parent engagement as well, and putting together the DLAC here in Boston Public Schools. And because of personal reasons, has to return back to Los Angeles. And I want to thank her publicly for the work that she has done. I'm very confident that we will continue to move forward in supporting the English language learners in Boston Public Schools.
Dr. Uriarte, did you want to say anything about her as well?
No question that we will miss her. We miss her already. And I mean, we worked with her now for 2 years. And the changes have been very, very important and great and large. I think that we can, we can trust the work of that office because of the work that she has done. And we're going to miss her. I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, I think we've been talking about the replacement, and we're insisting that it be somebody that do a national search, somebody with a lot, with the capacity to really lead the school. I mean, I want to remind us that about 30%, 1/3 of the enrollment are ELLs, and about half are either ELLs or former ELLs. So it's like a little mini district that this person will be in charge of, and I think that we need to be very watchful and supportive. And if you know of people that should be, that the district should be looking at for this position, please pass them on to Dr. Estrada, who's sort of heading the
Yeah, the bar was raised with Dr. Esparza. She did an excellent job. And phenomenal, compelling personal story from someone who dropped out of high school because she wanted to buy a nice car, go to work to buy a nice car, realized the limitations of not having a high school graduation, going back and getting it, ending up with a doctorate in education, and now doing an incredible job with us. Is back in the LA area now, will ultimately end up a superintendent, I'm sure, out on the West Coast at some point, and we wish her nothing but the best, and thank you for her time here. We will miss her, and besides the fact that she's a pretty cool person, and clearly the best dresser that we had, and had the best truck to get through the snow, right? But was the best dresser on the superintendent's team. So we have all, yes, superintendent. So we have all learned from her, and thank her for her time in Boston. We'll move back to any questions about.
I wanted, before we move on,
sorry,
I
yes.
wanted to thank you and Michael Locanto and Jerry Robinson for coming to her goodbye party in Chinatown last week. It was great. We had much more food than we could ever handle, and it was wonderful. So.
Well, I could not stay for the great meal, but it looks like Ms. Lee found a great find. She had a great find for people to know about in the future. So, are there any questions for Dr. Uriarte about the reauthorization? Dean Robinson.
Just a comment. To see the candidates, the folks that you are bringing to the table is also very encouraging, because we know that ELLs and SPED together, it's kind of a double duo of support needed for the families. And so I'm very encouraged, knowing the backgrounds of these potential members, that you all are very much looking at the critical needs of the students. So I applaud your efforts.
It's a priority. The same way that the whole issue of instruction is coming up improving the quality of instruction is something that Dr. Estrada and Dr. Esparza have been really focusing on. So we made an effort to bring on to the task force people that could focus on that as a priority.
And we saw that, we saw it and we heard it, in the parents' testimonies as well. And when we're in small group meetings with parents and we talk about inclusion, or at SPED PAC meetings, and you're meeting the families from diverse backgrounds that are asking the both and question, how can you support my student with both of these needs? Is it possible? And we're saying yes. It's complex, but it can be done. So I applaud the efforts that you all have been making. Dr. Chang, there is a definitely big shoes to fill, but I know that we're going to attract, when I see the folks who are on this team and this task force, we're going to attract the right leaders to help lead this charge. We're going to continue to do that, so keep it up.
Thank you. And also, I do note the ELL Task Force is in discussions about how they can work closer together with the Opportunity Achievement Gap Task Force as well, because so many of those issues overlap. So that's
We'll bring that up.
that's a hot conversation right now, as a matter of fact. So thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Uriarte about the reauthorization of the task force or the potential addition of these 3 new members? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. We'll actually have to take 2 separate votes on this. So first is the reauthorization of the task force, and then secondly on the slate of the new ELL task force members. So I'll first entertain a motion to approve the reauthorization of the ELL English Language Learners Task Force as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. Is there a second?
Jerry.
Second.
I think the superintendent, Dr. Rose, is saying if you could come and take that chart down, please.
The chart.
Thank you. No, the chart in front. Right? Either that or he's trying to land a plane from Logan. It was one of those two. So
I was gonna start sign language. I was gonna start signing.
thank you. So I believe we had a motion from Dean Robinson. Is there a second?
Jerry, second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. So there's a second. Any discussion or objection? Hearing none, Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Lecanto?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver Davila?
Yes.
Ms. Jerry Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Regina Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Uriarte?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion approving Dr. Andres Alonso, Ms. Farah Asa Raj, and Dr. Patricia Crane de Galassi as members of the ELL Task Force as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lecanto. Is there a second? Thank you, Dean Robinson. Any discussion or objection? Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Lecanto?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver Davila?
Yes.
Ms. Jerry Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Regina Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Uriarte?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And thank you to the work of the ELL Task Force, both the chairs, the co-chairs, Dr. Uriarte and Ms. Lee, and to all the members, many of whom we did say hello to at the dinner for Dr. Esparza. This is very important work. A couple of years ago, the district was in very difficult circumstances with how we approached, as Dr. Uriarte points out to us, what would be a district into itself of our students with ELL needs. And the task force has been going on for a number of years, and we keep reauthorizing it because the work is so critical. And so on behalf of the fellow members, thank you, Dr. Uriarte, and to Ms. Lee, if she's watching home this evening, and to all the members of the task force. The work they do is critical and is making a difference. Our next action item is the charter renewal application for the Edwin M. Yes?
Just very quickly, the OEL team, some members of the team are here, so I just
Yeah.
want
I'm
to
sorry.
recognize them and thank you for the work. Because I know they're very closely partnered with the task force. Sorry. I just want to recognize the members of OEL office and thank you for your partnership with the task force.
Thank
Alan?
you. Thank you.
Stand up now.
Great. Thank you very much. Our next action item is the charter renewal application for the Edward M. Kennedy Academy of Health Careers. You'll recall at our last meeting, EMK Headmaster Dr. Karen Walker Gregory presented this application to the committee for consideration. If passed by the committee tonight, the application will move on to the state for final approval. At this time, I'll invite the superintendent. Do you have any final remarks regarding EMK?
I'm excited to bring forth a school that is designed with a lot of the tenets that we have in our high school redesign, the pathways to medical careers, the work on projects. I'm very excited to be able to renew this charter on behalf of EMK. Also just want to note, the school has expressed interest to grow to a 7-12, but we have asked them to hold until we finish our Build BPS process and can make sure that this is all aligned with all the other work that's going on within the school system. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions regarding the EMK renewal? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the charter renewal application for the Edward M. Kennedy Academy of Health Careers as presented. Is there a motion? Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. Is there any discussion or objection? Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Lecanto?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver Davila?
Yes.
Ms. Jerry Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Regina Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Uriarte?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Our final action item this evening is a charter renewal application for Upper Academy Dorchester. You'll recall that on May 31st, Ms. Nicole Dorn, then interim chief executive officer, now deputy CEO, and is with us this evening, for Upper Academy Network, presented this application to the committee. Ms. Dorn is with us tonight, along with the new Upper Academy CEO, Ms. Veronica Conforme, who started earlier this month, and welcome. So you are both here with us this evening, along with many of your parents and advocates, as we heard before. Since the original presentation several weeks ago, when committee members asked a number of questions, most particularly around Up Network's Code of Conduct and the work that had gone on there, the network has provided the committee with responses to all the questions that we asked that night, as I said, particularly around the Code of Conduct. Also, based upon those response to questions and the feedback from this body at that discussion, UP representatives have also met with Professor Susan Mays Rothstein, who is, as all of us know, is the co-chair of BPS Code of Conduct Advisory Council, to identify areas for alignment. I do want to thank the leadership of UP for taking seriously the concerns of this body, for your work over the past several weeks, and for their commitment to work closely with the district moving forward. We all have in our packages and a letter to the superintendent from Ms. Dorn, going over Ms. Mays Rothstein's, Professor Mays Rothstein's initial feedback, comparison of the Code of Conduct, areas that they could be more closely aligned. And then also, quite frankly, I believe there were several points that Professor Mays Rothstein thought that the BPS COCAC could learn from the UP code. She also was invited up to, so she made several specific areas of recommendations, and it's my understanding you have accepted those. She has also invited you to join COCAC, and you have accepted and will be joining that in the fall. And the third is, I believe you have asked COCAC to take a deep dive on UP's Code of Conduct overall for all of your schools this fall. And Professor Mays Rothstein has agreed to do that as well. So at that time, I thank you for doing that and working with the district and hearing this body's concerns. At this time, Superintendent, do you have any comments to make?
Yes, I actually would love to present to the school committee Veronica Conforme, who is the new CEO of UP. I have known Veronica for many years. Veronica most recently was the chancellor of the Educational Achievement Authority in Michigan, doing turnaround work in the state of Michigan. Previous to that, she was a vice president at the College Board, really focused around equity and access to opportunities. Before that, if I get this right, Veronica, you were the CEO and CFO of New York Department of Education. I believe the New York DOE has a budget of $23 billion and serves 130,000 employees. So I think you just want to lower your grain size, maybe, a bit. Veronica Conforme is a graduate of Syracuse University. She also has her master's in public administration from Columbia University. I know that she is deeply grounded in issues of equity because of who she represents, her life experience, and the identity that she brings to this work. Veronica, do you want to say anything to the school committee before I make comments about the Code of Conduct?
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Superintendent Chang, for your kind introduction. I'll take this opportunity to thank Chairman O'Neill and all of the members of the school committee for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself as the new CEO. As Superintendent Chang mentioned, I've served the last 3 years in Detroit doing turnaround work, specifically because this is a passion and commitment for me. Turning around struggling schools, bolstering them up, and ensuring that all students achieve is what I am about. And I know firsthand what it's like not to have a high school quality option. I grew up in the South Bronx. My parents are immigrants to this country. And my sister, my oldest sister, when my parents didn't know about school choice, ended up at a school that had a 30% graduation rate and almost didn't graduate high school. And they made better choices after they were better informed. So this is personal work to me, and I'm very excited to do that. As Superintendent Chang said, I spent over a decade in New York City public schools. I'm a public school graduate and a public school advocate. And I'm excited that UP gets to partner with Boston Public Schools. And what I would like to see is further alignment and further partnership. We have a lot to learn from each other and really just share resources and best practices as we all learn and grow so that all students can succeed in Boston. We have a lot of work to do. UP has done great work already. There's a lot more to do to partner with families and the community. And I hope to spend more time with you individually, getting to know you. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Ms. Conforme. School committee members, I just want to remind everyone that UP Academy Dorchester has demonstrated, as you saw in the presentation of a month ago, some tremendous success improving the school from a level 3 to a level 1, reducing attrition rates by approximately 70%, and receiving over 1,000 applicants in its lottery each year. Currently has a wait list of 700. UP Dorchester has also, over the last year, reduced the number of exclusions by 59% and the number of suspensions by 33%. I want to confirm this chairman's notes about how collaborative UP has been over the last several months to make sure that there is great alignment in terms of our code of conduct. I appreciate the over-communication. I think it's a good way of describing it, the over-communication between UP and the Boston Public Schools. I am very confident that we have a strong plan moving forward. And want to thank Ms. Conforme and Ms. Dorn for future collaboration as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'll open up to committee members for questions or comments. Ms. Oliver Davila.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, in some of the information that we got, I just was curious, in one of the reports that you provided, the June 7th, when I was looking at the fourth grade suspension data, I was just curious about, I don't know if I'm reading this chart correctly, so it says that there was a percent decrease of 52%, and then there's another column that says increase of 40%, so I just didn't, if you could just explain that, I would appreciate it.
So I think what that indicates is that though the number of instances in suspensions went down by 52% for fourth graders, that the percent of students who received their suspension did increase from last year just for fourth graders. So overall for the school, through the end of June 30th, we saw a reduction in approximately 33% of the percent of students who had received an exclusion. And so what this probably means, the story that this probably tells, and again, this is just for the fourth grade, is that we had fewer students who might have gotten repeat suspensions, but maybe more students just in that grade who actually received one suspension. Obviously, we want both numbers to go down, and so that grade, particularly the fourth grade, is something, as they rise to fifth graders, we'll be paying a lot closer attention to. One of the data points that I'm not sure we shared, that we do watch, is that what we don't want to happen is we don't want to see the percentage of students who are suspended go down, but then the percentage of students, we also closely monitor the percentage of students who get long-term suspension, who have 10 days or more cumulative, because that would tell us that even if the percent of students who are excluded is going down, there still might be a pocket of students who are getting suspended over and over again, and that's not helpful to them. And so we're really happy this year at Up Dorchester that less than 1% of our student body had achieved that long-term suspension status of 10 or more days. So that's also a really important data point for us to watch in addition to these two.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say that hearing all the work that's been done and all the conversations, I'm happy to hear that. I think we definitely want to acknowledge all the hard work that's happened and the turnaround, and obviously that's really important to us. And so I would say that we're happy to continue working with UP, and we're in, the good faith that we're talking about right now, that we continue. So thank you for your words that we need to continue this collaboration and talking. So thank you for coming to all those meetings and really taking the feedback. I think that's great news to hear.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver Davila. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Locanto?
Thank you, Ms. Dorn, and welcome and good luck, Ms. Conforme. I wanted to follow up on what a few of my colleagues have said. You folks came here last time and you heard a lot of tough talk from us, particularly around the code of conduct. And, I want to make sure that that doesn't take away from all the good work that UP has done. Certainly, as you heard from the chair and from the superintendent, the turnaround that's occurred in the school and the rise in state accountability level, and the overall performance of our students. We owe a great debt. We asked you to come into this district, was it 5 years ago now, I believe, and you've done the work that was needed to turn that school around. And so that brings us to something that we talked about last time, which was where the autonomies that the district provides to Horace Mann charters and other sort of autonomous models of schools can depart from what district practice or what traditional practice is, and where it might maybe need to take a back seat to the way that the district does it. Because, overall, when we think about things like student conduct and behavioral issues in schools, there's really not a lot of, aberrations that can occur between the ways that you deal with that from school to school. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but broadly, I think we can all play out of the same playbook. And so we really appreciate the way that UP has, in fact, come to the table in, what was the word you used, over-communicated, Superintendent, both with the district as well as the Code of Conduct Advisory Committee. I've spoken to Professor Mays Rothstein myself, and she's told me, just how much work UP has put into working with the committee and going beyond the committee to deal with some other outside resources on restorative justice and so on and so forth. And so I think, what it says to me is you're making an earnest effort, and we greatly appreciate that. That effort certainly is over and above what effort you've made on the academic side, and that's certainly appreciated. And I think the effort that you are making on the code can help us as a district create a roadmap for other Horace Mann charters and other autonomous schools within the district that that might need to have a little bit more encouragement in taking the same sorts of steps in aligning themselves to the way that the district does business. And further on, as the chair outlined for us, I think it's great that through this process we've been able to highlight work that the district needs to do around the code as well. I think we've always thought that the code is an imperfect document and not a finished one, and there's always room for improvement. And so, the iterative process that we've been is going to help us to find a greater common ground in that respect. So thank you for that, and we wish you the best for another 5 years, hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Locanto. Very diplomatically phrased. As Ms. Dorn learned at the last meeting, and Ms. Conforme is learning, the code is something that's very important to this district. We're very proud of it. We've worked very closely with COCAC to put it together. We deeply appreciate the work you've done with Professor Mays Rothstein. the commitment you showed her, which she has relayed back to us as Mr. Lecanto seemed to be saying. It's a good faith effort on our part as we're looking at the renewal, that this effort will continue and that the changes will continue to be made, and you'll be giving input as well. And, but we're doing that because we are partners, right? We invited you into our district several years ago and asked you to take over some schools that we were really struggling with. And in particular with this school, because we do it on a school-by-school basis with you, we made additional requests. This committee did, which I think I was the only member at that point still on it as I begin my 10th year on the committee now. And we asked in particular that you work with the parent group at that school and to not wholesale push them out and start fresh. And I see a lot of the parent folks nodding their head as well, and that's exactly what you did. And the data that we tracked religiously showed that you did do that. So we've asked you a number of times on a good faith basis to do something, and you have done it. So the track record shows when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that is what the committee is doing at this point, to ask you to continue with this effort, the code of conduct, because as Mr. Lecanto alluded to, this is important to us, not just with us, with UP, but we have a number of autonomous schools, both Horace Mann, in-district charters, pilot, innovation, et cetera, who all have some degree of autonomy, and they have different viewpoints on what the district can and can't tell them to do. And so this is symptomatic to us of, you may have noticed, I'm not sure if you're watching at the last presentation, in mid-June when the EMK was presenting, and Ms. Oliver Davila asked specifically the headmaster, do you follow the code of conduct? So this is a conversation we're having with everyone that has a degree of autonomy from the district, and your cooperation on this is very important to us as we work with the others. I think, Dean Robinson, you had something you want to say?
Thank you. So I also want to applaud the efforts, first for listening to the concerns from the committee, your team, the board members who were in attendance, and those who responded, to our concerns. So first, I want to applaud your efforts for listening, and then taking the feedback and really spelling it out very thoroughly and clearly. I want to thank the parents for coming. I'm always encouraged when I hear parent stories, parent testimonies. I love it when parents say, they didn't pay me to say this, because that's usually the case. It's true, and to see the students who are represented as well, knowing that the work that you all have done is really great work. But with any school, whether they're a strengthening and strengthening the district or a school that's challenged, we want to hold everyone to the same standard. So I hope you heard the spirit of the dialogue in the last meeting. And I also want to just applaud the efforts that I heard regarding the parent engagement piece and the work that you're doing to engage all types of parents. Thank you for clearly just kind of outlining and spelling out even how you walk students through the restorative process. That is helpful to know your best practices as we're sharing best practices, and the collaborative spirit and bringing in new leaders is really encouraging as well. So I applaud the efforts that you all have made to hear what we've brought up as concerns. Thank your leaders, and we just look forward to watching and continuing the good work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. Ms. Robinson?
I just want to join the members in saying thank you, and I'll be looking forward to hearing about the things that you all have to teach us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Dr. Uriarte?
I also wanted to thank you, and also for the information that on English language learners, and maybe ask you to invite me to come to your school.
Yes, absolutely. We would love to have any member anytime, but
All right.
absolutely, yes.
Okay, I'm sort of intrigued by some of the information that you have here, so I'd really like to continue the conversation.
Yes, yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
definitely follow up and set that up.
All right.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Uriarte. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the renewal, approve the charter renewal application for Upper Academy of Dorchester as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. Sounds like a second from Mr. Lecanto. Any discussion or objection? Hearing none, Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Lecanto?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver Davila?
Yes.
Ms. Jerry Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Regina Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Uriarte?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you. Thank you to the leadership of Upper Academy at Dorchester for all the members of the community here, and particularly the parents. And I have to call out Mr. Neal, though I think he left now with his daughter, because she probably has homework. Oh, no, she doesn't have homework to do. It's summertime. That's right. She's going home to celebrate. She just realized she's in the 4th grade now. But we thank you all for attending this evening, and we look forward to continuing this spirit of collaboration with UP. And welcome, Ms. Conforme. Hope we find our winters better than Michigan. Move on to our first report now, an update on the Opportunity Achievement Gap Implementation Plan. At this time, I'd like to invite Assistant Superintendent of the Office of Opportunity Achievement Gap, Dr. Colin Rose. Superintendent, you're heading away. Do you have some? Oh, I'm sorry, you were going to head down. That's right, of course, yes.
Not leaving.
So actually, I'd like to turn first. I'm not sure, Ms. Robinson, did you have any comments you want to make to introduce this, or? I see your co-chair is here, at least one of your co-chairs is here as well.
Yes,
Pastor
Sam's going to
Acevedo.
say a few words. I just want to say, it was a year ago, this meeting, that we first brought forward the task force report and plan to be thought about. And it's taken a full year of a lot of hard work of a lot of people, led by Dr. Rose and all of the department heads to get us to the point where we are tonight. So it's been a long road, and we're happy to be here with you tonight, and I want Sam to say a few words about where we're heading.
So on behalf of the Opportunity and Achievement Gap Task Force, we want to commend Dr. Rose and the district, not only for the implementation plan being presented tonight, but for the process that produced it, which we believe is even more significant and has even more import for what takes place beyond today. In many ways, the process presages the role of the task force as a monitoring body. It's steeped in candid, transparent communication with Dr. Rose, with BPS department leaders, with Dr. Chang and Dr. Estrada. This process was a voyage of discovery, I think it's fair to say, unveiling the strengths and the challenges the district and really the city of Boston faces as we seek to narrow and eliminate the opportunity and achievement gaps. Like the ELL task force, the work going forward may require new faces at the Opportunity and Achievement Gap Task Force, and we will be coming back to the committee as a dialogue for the composition of the task force as we enter the work as a monitoring body. But we are grateful for all of the members of the task force who have invested the last 26 months to take us where we are today, and for Dr. Rose, who's been an integral part of that dialogue. This includes folks who are sitting in the dais today, including Mrs. Robinson, Dr. Coleman, who's not here tonight, Ms. Oliver Davila, of course our colleague Ayele Shakur, who's not with us tonight, but is sending her best wishes and her cheers. And we're excited for what's ahead, and we're confident that the work that we're beginning tonight through the plan that Dr. Rose will be sharing lays the groundwork for finally closing the opportunity and achievement gaps in our district in our time.
Thank you, Pastor.
School committee, in all transparency, the reason I am sitting here next to Dr. Rose tonight is to express the importance of this work and the importance that the superintendent of Boston Public Schools, the responsibility the superintendent of Boston Public Schools must take to make sure that this work is executed. And while we have been doing a lot of planning, we've also been doing a lot of work. But I really think that we're at a very symbolic point this evening to actually publicly present the work that this task force has done over the last year, to put together a plan to do something that no other school district has ever done, which is truly and authentically to close opportunity achievement gaps. I want to say a few words, and then I'm going to turn over to Dr. Rose 2 years ago, when I started as the superintendent of Boston Public Schools, we created a 100-day plan, and that plan was guided by 5 values. And the first of those values was that all youth can and must achieve at high levels. And while we have made some significant strides over the last decade to deal with some equity challenges, we must recognize the opportunity achievement gaps remain, and that is why we set ourselves to push ourselves in putting a problem out there publicly that I would say is probably one of the most provocative I have heard for a school system. And it says, we know that as a city, we have not consistently provided authentic learning opportunities for our students who are most marginalized to develop into self-determined, independent learners, able to pursue their aspirations. It is our failures that have led to disengaged students and significant achievement gaps. Not very many school systems, I actually don't think of any other school system that's willing to say that publicly. And over the last 2 years, we have worked to ensure that the closing opportunity and achievement gaps remains our mission, and that is why we embarked on a multi-year journey to develop cultural and linguistically sustaining practices. That work has been led by Dr. Rose and his team. We have created structures, tools, and coaching to help school leaders and their teams confront issues around biases and belief systems. That is the very first step to the multiple phase process of developing culturally and linguistically sustaining practices. And we have continuously analyzed and began to address systemic structures that lead to exclusionary practices. And we're doing this not only by ourselves, but we're doing this in partnership with schools and school communities. The necessity of acknowledging, engaging in, and continuously reflecting on issues around biases is the work of school leaders, of teachers, of community partners. Building a teaching force that is not only the most talented in the nation, but also celebrates and reflects the diversity of our students. That is something that we're investing the entire BPS community in. And I'm also excited to say that this summer, we will be launching BPS's Essentials for Instructional Equity. And these essentials establish a coherent research-based vision for what instruction should look like. And these competencies are meant directly to address opportunity and achievement gaps. There are many teaching and learning frameworks across the country, but I have never, ever seen one that states explicitly that the closing opportunity and achievement gaps is the why of that framework. And so there will be a big launch of the essentials, but to give you a sneak preview, those 4 essentials are: create safe, healthy, sustaining learning environments, facilitate cognitively demanding tasks and instruction to engage with tasks that are aligned to college and career readiness and 21st century skills, assess for learning, and design for access and agency so all students, especially those most marginalized, truly are engaged learners. And I want to thank this school committee as well for some key decisions and investments that you have made, including our Excellence for All initiative to create access to more rigorous, enriching, and inclusive classrooms, grades 4 through 6, adding over 700 pre-K seats in the last 3 years, investing in our students who are experiencing homelessness, and investing in additional resources and support for our most struggling schools. I know truly that every single student can excel if we provide them the right opportunities. All of you, along with me, each and every single year, see our students overcome immense challenges to stand proud at award ceremonies, at end-of-year exhibits of their work, and of course at graduation. Over the last month and a half, we have seen this. And while we still have much work to do, I am deeply appreciative of Dr. Rose and his team. I actually take a very learner orientation to this work and learn from Dr. Rose quite a bit. I want to thank the guidance of the Opportunity Achievement Gaps, Sam, who spoke earlier, Sam Acevedo, who is a chair member, another chairman member, Jerry Robinson, thank you, and also chair member, Ayali Shakur. And lastly, I want to thank the commitment of the entire BPS community to this work. This work cannot be done in silos. This work has to truly be done as one community, as a culture of we. So with that, I turn it over to Dr. Rose. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, school committee, and good afternoon, good evening. I wasn't sure that Dr. Chang would be joining me at this desk, so I don't know if you want to click the button or me.
I'll do that. I'll be a technical support for you.
You can be technical support.
Dr. Rose, you realize how unusual this is, don't you?
I get that impression, yes.
It's a pretty powerful message.
I know, and I appreciate it. So I'm here to present a high-level draft of the Opportunity Achievement Gap implementation plan based off the 2016 Opportunity Achievement Gap policy. This is our first attempt to do justice to the words and the spirit of the policy, and I'm excited to share some of the work that the district is currently embarked in and plan to embark in to respond to the charges within that policy. I guess I'll have to.
I got it.
There, we gotta go back.
Right, that one.
Yes. We prepared this implementation plan with great urgency around the necessity to change the trajectory of many of our most marginalized subgroups. To do this, we first needed to admit and acknowledge the structural and cultural biases that exist in our society and our system and the oppression it has caused, whether intentional or not. With this in mind, we need to then unapologetically bring the change that we need to approach our work to serve the most marginalized students within our district. This work is not just important for the educational outcome of Black and brown students, students with disability, English language learners, and those who are economically disadvantaged, but for everyone, as many of these groups are among the fastest growing in Boston and in our country as a whole. Their success is our success. We embark on this journey in the theory of targeted universalism. This was popularized by John Powell. And in this line of thinking, we pushed aside the tendency to create solutions, reforms, policy, programming that is targeted towards the all or the middle, instead focusing on what is needed for the most marginalized to achieve. And thus, in that way, removing all barriers and layers of barriers for everybody. For this view of targeted universalism, the OAG policy has given us a great logic model to follow. Within the 6 goals and numerous objectives, there are 3 main areas of work. The first around a focus on cultural proficiency, not just only in the skills of every person in BPS, but also in the diversity of the professionals that are in front of our students and work in our offices. Another is focusing on dismantling these structural barriers that we talk about often, from operational units such as transportation and food services, to the way that we organize and make available programming within the system. And third, the ecological supports from students, families, communities, as authentic partners in working through problems within the lived experiences of our students and their families, to partner with citywide organizations like City Hall, and relationships that we have with colleges and universities. Building the implementation plan, transparency was the #1 thing that we thought of to begin with. I'm really aware of the history of the first policy in 2006 and its lack of implementation with fidelity. So we were very sensitive to that. We wanted to make sure that the task force and the community could see the goals as they were being created from Jump Street. So at times this was painful. At times it exposed some warts. But I believe transparency is what we need to expose some of our shortcomings in order to grow. And so I just think it was part of the process. So to build this implementation plan, we worked with over 20 offices within BPS, as well as community members and, of course, the task force. The process was initiated in Cabinet last year when we started mapping the actual policy to the strategic implementation plan for the district. Next, I sat down with the offices to find connection points to the policy. Now starting with the famous Draft 8, which was a highly prescriptive version of the policy that really tried to marry a policy and an implementation plan into one that we eventually had to walk back, but was very prescriptive around what we wanted offices to be focused on. So from that starting point, we discussed what goals might look like that honored the spirit of this policy, and what implications it would have on the work of all of the offices. Monica Hogan from ODA, who sits behind me, was instrumental in these meetings as we considered how, or if it was possible, to quantify some of the strategies that the offices were embarking on. Department heads then created SMART goals or process goals and came before the task force and presented to receive feedback. Depending on how well that the task force gauged the goals, there was multiple revisions and resubmitted goals. The task force created a scoring system where all goals sit either right now at level 1 or level 2, which is very good, or on the cusp. And a lot of the goals that are on the cusp can't become level 1s because we really wanted to see very targeted metrics. And some offices aren't at the point where they can give us metrics because they don't even have the measurements to get to the metrics. And so sometimes you have to do process goals in order to get very targeted. The oversight and the implementation charge of the task force is that they're a monitoring body. So that's what's going to happen moving forward. The plan will be a living, breathing document online. This is not set in stone and is not permanent. The preliminary plan is to break the task force into subgroups to oversee major priority areas beyond our normal task force full meetings, and then meet with the offices within those priority areas to monitor progress, review and tune strategies, and discuss challenges and next steps in a cycle of learning. Within the district and in accordance to Objective 1, I'll be the main person facilitating and monitoring the plan with help from staff members within my office. Finally, within the Objective number 1, equity impact statements have started to accompany school committee presentations. However, recently, Cabinet has been trained on a racial equity tool that I include in the appendice to the printed out document. When properly used, this will push offices to think about equity during the onset of planning, projects, policies, and programs, with the hope that the impact statements will be more robust and really truly reflect the process by which equity was at the core of the start of a policy problem or policy. Now we can look at the actual body of the implementation plan. So when you look through the body of the implementation plan, so goals 2 through 6, you'll see multiple distinct areas. First, we start off with the priority area and the objective number. That objective reflects the actual objective from the policy. Then there's a section on the background strategies, and then the concrete changes in practice or policy from the district. I wanted to really delineate what are we doing differently as a result of the strategies that we're embarking on. After that, you have a success metric, which is really aligned to the performance meter and the school quality framework. So every SMART goal or process goal has its own kind of metric or goal or outcome, but all of them should add up within an objective to push some type of needle district-wide. So if it's not, then either we pick the wrong strategies or we're not being effective in our SMART goals. After that, you have the actual SMART goal or process goal. Online, and the next slide will kind of give you an example, you'll be able to actually click into the SMART goal, process goal, and see the action plan that goes with that actual SMART goal. And then there's a section below that where we align to state priorities and then plans for sustaining the action. So are the actions sustainable currently and in the future, or will there be more resources and budget needed to be put next to it? This next slide represents kind of an example of what you will see online eventually. So you actually have the process goal, and attached is this action plan. When on the online version, you'll be able to click into the work plan of each goal, which names the action steps, responsible parties, the timeline, and the evidence of effectiveness for each step within the action plan. Each goal that you see in the high-level version printed today has an accompanied work plan. So before we discuss kind of the strengths and the limitations of the current plan, and then move on to some illustrations of how the work is changing in BPS, we can talk about some of the momentum that's already been started from early implementation. The CLSP work speaks to our work on cultural proficiency. When I walked in a year and a half ago, we had no definition for cultural proficiency. We had no way to operationalize it in the schools across our district or within any central office. Today, we have a definition, which is what cultural and linguistically sustaining practice provides us, with competencies and look-fors. We have conducted hours of professional learning with all school leaders, partners, specific schools, departments such as strategy, and have partnered around cabinet sessions with the Office of Equity. This year, every school will have a CLSP goal attached to the quality school plan with specific action plans for continual learning in their school buildings connected to other areas of the work. So this work is not ancillary to the work that the schools are doing, but it is front and center. We are beginning to systematize CLSP so that the reflected practices embedded in CLSP becomes the work of any employee in BPS. In addition, the energy and partnership that has begun around the work is exciting. Beyond the task force members, I have organizations such as the NAACP, the new Boston Network for Black Student Achievement, as well as scholars and universities from institutes intrigued about the work we have begun, and those in city governments such as Conan Harris, Ron Dorsey, and Atia Martin as partners in the work. Of course, teachers in schools who have been pushing this work for years have been re-energized and are helping push the work in many ways. The Opportunity Achievement Gap Speaker Series was an exciting, was exciting and is now pushing individual community members to ask how they can be on board. I live right up the street on Warren, about a mile away from here, and when I walk by my neighbors who have went to some of these events, they stop me and we actually talk about what are some of the strategies we're going to be trying to close these gaps and what's necessary for their neighbors, students to succeed. So it's really become a community conversation. We're also starting to push and create accountability at the school and community level. So if curricular decisions, as it does in our district, and staffing decisions are made at the school level, so should the supports and the accountability. And so that's where we're starting really to focus in the district. Now we can outline some priorities in the plan. One of the biggest, of course, again, is cultural proficiency, and it has a bulk of the goals within the plan. Throughout the structures and professional learning in the plan for CLSP, it is the cycle of learning across this whole district, not just at the school level, not just at the teacher level, but in central office and everywhere. In addition to knowing who our students are culturally and individually, we must have the systems to constantly and proactively monitor our progress. The implementation plan outlines strategies such as collecting more nuanced data in many areas for equity and spreading early warning indicator systems to monitor student progress in real time, better matching needs with services, and monitoring for effectiveness of all of our educational programming at the subgroup and individual student level. The plan will also create a similar early warning system for schools so we can use leading indicators to better match the need of individual schools, right? So the creation of an OAG dashboard eventually in the winter, instead of just simply responding to these lagging indicators of accountability levels and climate surveys. Beyond CLSP, the implementation plan will also cover some new ground on long-standing problems that do not have quick or clear paths forward. Two such areas of prominence in the policy are special education rates, especially for students of color, and staff diversity. The plan has specific goals to curb identification rates in special education for over-identified groups, as well as improving the instruction within those substantially separate classrooms. Within the areas of staff diversity, the plan outlines more supports to pipeline, recruiting and retaining staff of color, while also building a new accountability at the school and central office level through diversity targets. Although these are concrete steps toward addressing these problems, they are not silver bullets. Continual learning and thought partnership with the subcommittees of the task force will be necessary to deepen and refine these strategies. Within the implementation plan, we also begin to piece together what it means to have a quality programming from K to 12 in all BPS classrooms. The expansion of our early childhood program into early and elementary and really focusing on marginalized students within that. The building of excellence for all, which is piloting the conditions needed to bring highly engaging and rigorous educational program to elementary and middle school students. In the process of having coursework standards within high schools, are all at the front of describing what is necessary to create the conditions for all of our students to be college, career, and life ready. As we learn from and attempt to bridge these three levels of design work into some type of coherent K-12 strategy over the next several years, it is important to tailor the improvements, again, under the guise of targeted universalism, and monitor their effects for historically marginalized populations. Finally, a system's budget in many ways illustrates its values. In this plan, we begin to work on trying to bring more equity to the short-term and long-term budget process. We started that by creating a working group, a subgroup of the OAG task force and the finance team to begin to identify some key budget priorities moving forward. In addition, we're exploring new measurements such as the Opportunity Index, which uses neighborhood-level measures to follow anticipated need from a student's doorstep to the school that they attend. This measure will be used in the future for many decisions, such as allocating our district partnership dollars to its possible inclusion into the school funding model. In addition, we are pushing into operational offices that traditionally are not involved in the equity work. Again, we talked about transportation, food services, everybody's involved in this plan. As with any plan, there are some limitations. Although we do have a fairly robust section on ecological supports for families, communities, school-based partners, there's much room to grow in the future. Starting with the theory that we need to get our own house in order and have our own kind of platform and priorities, this element in the implementation plan will benefit from further development into the future. Deepening our ties with city government, the Boston Teachers Union, our city councilors, as well as expanding our ties with priorities in partnership with community organizations are worthy of further exploration in the next iteration of the OAG implementation plan so that we can leverage all of the vast assets of this city. Dialogue and partnerships with colleges and universities and other preparatory programs can ensure that people are walking into our district with the competencies that align to our core values and make sure that that is infused in their coursework and their practicum experiences. We can look now at some of the changes in the work of the district through a few sample areas, objectives within the policy. So we can start with 3.1. 3.1 asks the district to increase the diversity of professionals at all levels of the system. So some new pieces of work include more avenues of supports for schools, targets for schools and offices around diversity and accountability attached, as well as expansion of pipeline and retention programs that target staff members of color. 3.2 talks about cultural proficiency and professional development, as we talked before. CLSP is a big part of that. So the things we've already started implementing is, again, CLSP in all of our induction programs. CLSP at all schools connected to their QUISP. CLSP in offices infused into professional development for all departments in collaboration with ASSET. An analysis of the overall PD coaching model in the district, especially as it relates to changes in practices for marginalized students. So how do we actualize our professional development and make sure that it's happening at the ground, and what is necessary in between, what is the coaching necessary in between to make that actualization? We can also look at 4.1 and 4.5 as examples. 4.1 deals with cultural proficiency and highly effective teachers in every classroom. We will change the priority standards for teachers, principals, and central office evaluators to match the competencies of CLSP, and change measures on our climate survey to better judge CLSP from students, families, and teachers' perspectives. 4.5 deals with the identification and placement of students in special education and English language learners. We have outlined new strategies and targets to reduce disproportionality within special ed, especially with boys of color and ELL students, as well as creating new equity analysis for both groups of students. We can look at 5.3 and 5.4 for examples of some of the structural work that we're doing. So when you look at objective 5.3, it looks at funding equity, and we've begun the process to infuse OAG task force again with the finance team in some key areas. And again, we're looking at more nuanced data to make sure that support follows need, especially through the Opportunity Index. 5.4 pushes for how we avail rigorous curriculum and programming opportunities for our targeted populations. Here we begin to piece together, again, a K-12 strategy that starts to target reforms in early childhood, elementary and middle school, and new graduation requirements. As we move forward and learn more about the results of these 3 strands of work, it's going to be important to create a coherent strategy. And then a couple of examples of the ecological changes that we have around our supports. 6.1 includes strategies for students, such as getting to 100% representation on school site councils, as well as creating more town halls run by student organizations such as BSAC, and creating spaces where student leaders can take part in professional development side by side with teachers, especially around CLSP. 6.2 deals with parent and family engagement, where earmarking of funds for engagement plans and a push for family engagement strategies that are currently on the books but aren't necessarily always adhered to become part of the accountability system. In addition, we will expand our opportunities for parents to become partners in closing opportunity achievement gaps and providing more supports for teachers to engage students and families. Finally, I'd like to share a few recognitions and some next steps. So we can talk about the next steps, but first I'd like to name a few individuals and groups that were both vital not only in building this plan, but also pushing the work of my office that I've embarked on over my 1.5 years in my position. So again, obviously the task force chair, Jerry Robinson, Sam Acevedo, Ayeli Secura, who couldn't be here tonight. Their countless hours and patience with the process, I truly appreciate your advice, your wisdom, so I thank you for that. In fact, all the task force members I'd like to recognize tonight because, again, we have 109 SMART goals with action plans attached to them. The amount of time people have volunteered, looked over, scoured over, given feedback is unbelievable. So I really appreciate all the work from the task force. And then on the flip side, all the department heads that put in hours and hours of work and were willing to change the trajectory of their work to match the spirit of the policy. And their want and their ability to keep pushing forward, because our task force, I guarantee, will not stop pushing the envelope and pushing to the margins of what is possible in every office. So I thank the department heads. Other stakeholders, again, Alex, I thank you for being a support personally to me, but also on that task force, and Hardin, who's not here, also a task force member. John Mudd, who should just be on the task force anyways, who is a staunch and unapologetic advocate for the children of Boston, and always is there. He's very consistent. NAACP and the leader, Tanisha Sullivan, who gave me some very timely advice on this plan. City Hall, so Mayor Walsh, Ron Dorsey, Conan Harris, and Tia Martin, who are beginning partners and will be deeper partners in the work. Barbara Fields, and again, the New Boston Network for Black Student Achievement, their wisdom, their experience, and their actual grassroots nature of the work that they're starting, I truly appreciate and look forward to partnering with. Beam, Roseanne Tung from the Annenberg Institute, who we just recently presented with the AERA, and we'll do again in the fall, so we've created a pretty robust practitioner-researcher partnership that I really appreciate. Saren Daly, Dr. Blake, specifically for the MEOC and WEOC work that they're doing, building and retaining the talent of men and women of color in this district. And then the other partners within our district, so Dr. Chang, for giving me the rope to try some new things and some really edgy things, I would say. It's not that I haven't been pulled in the principal's office a couple times, and I probably will in the future. You know, I don't mind taking risks, and especially when I look at the students and some of the outcomes that we're seeing. You know, I will push to the margins, but I thank you for trusting me to do so. Carla Estrada, who's not here, she's on vacation too, has been not only instrumental in being a voice for me in my work, but for my personal development in management and seeing the veracity she comes to work with every day was very important. And all my asset team members that I work with. Becky Schuster in equity, being a partner in the work. Makiba McCreary and Rob Gonsalvo for helping me navigate the system. And always my team that always has my back. Hayden Frederick Clark, who's a champion of cultural proficiency and does some of the most powerful professional developments you'll ever go to. You need to check him out. Doncor Isa, who's taken over the 10 Boys program and expanded it and made it a very rigorous program. Deandra Robinson, who doesn't like to be mentioned, but is really the rock OAG. Harold Miller, Regine Pierre, who runs EFA, and especially Monica Hogan, again, for sticking with me in all these countless meetings and thinking about the metrics that offices are trying to move towards. With that, as for the immediate next steps, this plan will be finalized in print form, nice and glossy, but will also just be built out as a living, breathing document online, and that's where it will live. The task force and I need to finalize the oversight model, what the subgroups will look like, how often they will meet, and then finalize kind of the reporting mechanism, right? The where, when, what, how, for annual progress reports from offices around the different objective areas, which ideally will take place before budget time, again, because some of these things have large budget implications. With that, I thank you for my opportunity to present. Might have been a little bit long-winded, but this is my opportunity. So I await your comments, questions, and feedback.
You're absolutely right, Dr. Rose, and the work you're doing is so critical and has been eagerly anticipated by this committee. So thank you for the presentation. Open now for questions and comments from members. Dean Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Rose and Dr. Chang. Nice tag team there. I really appreciate just the thoroughness of the work that you've done. And I just want to sidebar, thank you for acknowledging every single person who's been a part of the process, because I think many times we get the reports and we get the presentations from the leaders and the drivers, but there are so many people behind the scenes. And so, you know, I was feverishly kind of taking some notes of not just the team members that are acknowledged all the time, but just some of the others, the support staff. So, you know, thank you for leading that charge and just recognizing everybody on the team, because we know, especially with a sports analogy, we know that the folks in the background are instrumental in the players making the plays on the field. So thanks for acknowledging them. I'm really excited about the priorities and limitations that you presented and the recognition that you need to deepen the work across the spectrum in the city, because there's a great talent pool in this area of support and advocacy. You've already tapped a lot of support systems, and so I'm glad to hear that your next steps are really trying to figure out how this oversight model works, because the connections with colleges and universities around opportunity and achievement. Do you have some folks in mind who are going to help take the lead, or some content experts in the higher ed field whose content expertise is around opportunity and achievement, who could potentially become partners? So that's one question for colleges and universities. And then the other question is the pathway support of helping the staff members who are wanting to connect with the colleges and universities. So creating that pipeline of support for the higher ed market to really, I mean, that's the next step for our students. So do you have some folks in mind that, you know, you're already tapping to navigate this process?
A lot of the work that I've been doing was, again, with Brown University and Annenberg Institute, Roseanne Tung, who did a lot of the work on the Boys of Color reports. You know, I've talked to Ron Fergus that there's I think through a lot of the different objectives, especially on the opportunity index, there's ample opportunity to tap into a lot of the experts in the field. But again, I think what we attempted to do to begin with is start thinking about the structures within, you know, kind of our realm of control within the district, and create a platform in which then we can reach out with kind of a clear vision of what our ask would be and where we would want to grow. So
Yeah, that's definitely really, really smart to do. And it sounds like there's kind of a plethora of folks who are willing to support this work.
yeah, and around pipeline programs, are you talking about to get to connect? There are some goals around that, and again, Saren Daly in the Office of Diversity within OHC really takes the lead in that. And so I know that she has pipelines, not only for paras, community members, but also thinking about reaching back into high school and supporting students who want to become teachers or staff members into higher ed, so UMass and other places. So some of their goals speak to what you talked to.
Okay, that's great. And with OAG, as I've mentioned, with other departments, as you're able to bridge build bridges with deans of school of eds in the area, I really want to find a way for BPS to tap into that network and not just connect with those particular leaders who are training the teachers, but also find ways to partner and hold them accountable that we're here, this is our work, it's really great work, and you make our work look great when our kids and our staff can become educated by your leaders as well. So I want to just applaud the effort and just kind of encourage that push into my space.
Yeah, I think coming up with an instructional vision, and especially CLSP, will give us, I think, the walking orders to start those conversations with schools of ed around that, what they can add, but also what the expectations are for people that walk into our buildings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. Dr. Uriarte?
Colin, this is a great effort. And I just wanted to first congratulate you and the task force for, just taking this and blowing it up so that we can see the sort of the extent of what you're trying to do. Couple of comments. I need to clarify, I need to understand how the task force and your office will work. What, is that something that you'll do in the future, or, how do you envision that?
I hope it's immediate. So I would like to see the task force again. So we'll create a whole task force, but create subcommittees. Work's going on now. So my main push to get this in front was work's going on now. We need to be monitoring work. We need to be pushing work. We need to be constantly pushing thinking. So I think creating subcommittees over the priority areas and having quarterly meetings with the offices that have goals and responsibilities within those spaces, and pushing their thinking and making sure they're on target on their work plans. I see that as a continual process of learning through the district forever, almost. But
do you see, your job is to monitor this going forward,
Yes.
correct? For the district, so that you have that hat, and so that the task force will support that work? Is that, I'm trying to see how different, the same are you to the ELL task force?
So I think it's important to have solidarity with the task force. So, I'm organizing, I'm working day to day with offices.
Yeah.
But this task force is charged with overseeing the policy also. So
Okay.
they're part of their job beyond creating the policy, and that's why I brought them into the implementation plan process, is that, I expect that they are part of the process of actually overseeing the goals and the action steps, and making sure that they're thought partners with offices and doing work with offices. So I'm convening, I'm pushing thinking through my office, but I also want that expert outside vision from different angles to also put their lens on what's going on, and as an accountability measure outside of the district to make sure that work gets done. Hold me accountable, hold my colleagues accountable.
Let me just quickly add that ultimately this is the work of the district, so Dr. Rose's job I would see as a facilitator for the work that's happening system-wide.
System-wide.
But this is our strategic implementation plan, and there's a lot of working plans we have in BPS. We have to get better at integrating the work, so no matter what department you are, you understand the work you are doing is in service of the closing opportunity achievement gaps.
Okay. When you came to the ELL task force, one of the things before you left, we said that we needed to think about the ways in which the work of the two task forces can be integrated. I have to tell you this, but you and I are friends on this. ELLs are almost absent from this, okay? So that we need to think together about how most of this is really something, it also applies to about 1/3 of the district or 1/2 of the district, and that has very salient cultural and linguistic differences and situations that need to be addressed. So I think the challenge is to figure out how those, how we can work together to sort of fill out and see how it affects that population as well.
Yeah, and I guess I don't see it as so much not include. So when we talk about marginalized youth, like ELLs are front and center when we look at our scores, when we look at what's happening. So I think the strategies, especially around cultural proficiency, are I think absolutely applicable. Apply.
Yeah.
They apply to ELL students, but I agree that the two task force, even though we do have members that cross,
Yeah.
probably need to sit down and get together and talk a little bit more about how we can be more explicit in bringing that out within the policy and the work of the district.
For example, I didn't see OELL. I saw it in only one, and they have a lot to say about some of the issues that you're talking about instruction, about a whole lot of other things, and they're not there. So I think that it is important not only that at the task force level, but also at the district level, that discussion take place, and that, so that it gets reflected in a real way in documents like this. I think we're going to go through a process also of developing goals, but I think our roles are a little bit different. In that, we relate to the OELL, but others, but nevertheless, I think that we need to be able to think about together about some of these issues. The final thing I wanted to ask is about the training that is going on. Yeah?
No, go ahead.
Huh?
I'm just going to make a comment after you finish.
Okay.
I didn't hear it.
I can't hear it now?
No, I was going to affirm what you said and ask you to be a true partner working with Jerry in helping build more coherence between the work of the two task forces.
Yeah.
But I was being respectful.
You don't
and
pay
wanted
me
you
enough to do that. No, I'm kidding.
to have,
No, it's just the
once
time,
again,
it's the
have
time.
retired and you're fully committing to this work, so we thank you for it.
No, but it's obvious, and I think when he came to the ELL task force, it was really, just in issues that are important to us, like the hiring, the kind of, the ways in which we go about hiring people, a lot of the things are very, very similar and have implications for both, and one of the things I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because we hear sometimes about the training that you do, so I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you're approaching issues related to immigration and immigrants and that kind of dynamic within the process. Could you pass on, do you have any kind of curriculum that we could take a look at?
So we do have a toolkit, OAG, it's called OAG, but OAG toolkit that has readings, books not only for adults, professional development, but also for students, broken up into even beyond our, again, race buckets, so readings for El Salvadorians. And so we do have resources. The lens that we took to the work to start with was a racial equity lens, because I think race is the dominant paradigm in this society, right? And so we did, when we talked about the construct of race, and especially internalized racism, we did travel to Latin America and talk about a lot of the issues that students are coming in from Latin America with. So this was immigrants, Latino students, immigrant students were weaved into, along with that, we went to Korea to talk about certain things that are happening and coming back over the United States. And so I don't think they were absent from the discussion, but we're also encouraging that schools deeply know their students. And if you have a large population of L students, who they are, where they come from, we need to be learners of culture. And so that's the main lesson of CLSP. First competency, awareness, and checking your own biases. Second competency, who are the students, the families, the communities that I am serving, right? And how do I get a deep and authentic knowledge of those people that I serve? And then how do I then change the third competency, change my practices to meet the needs of that population?
Yeah.
And so in that way, that's why I say I don't see ELL as divorced of that message. But if within, especially within the district and within certain schools, is definitely have to be a prevailing message around language in those situations.
Okay, again, I mean, maybe a discussion that we can have, but I think sometimes, you know, for some populations, sort of the U.S. framework of race is something that people need to understand, because they're coming from places where it works very differently.
Yes.
So that I think that's sort of a little bit of the discussion that maybe we should have.
Yeah, intersectionality. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All set, Dr. Uriarte?
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Locanto?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Rose. So I just want to take a brief moment. I think it's very important to acknowledge the just sheer volume of work that you have done along with your colleagues and the task force, particularly given, you know, what the superintendent acknowledged earlier is you didn't have any template, you know. Being the first district in the country is something, and it's something that we can be proud of. But, you know, what we're much more proud of is the fact that, you know, we're doing this together and we're doing it for our kids. And, you know, we should probably acknowledge that Superintendent Chang didn't have to, you know, attack this with the vigor that he did, and didn't have to go out and get you and your team involved here. But he was responding to the priority that our body gave this work, and you folks have certainly taken that on. I think it's also helpful that you highlighted earlier the omnipresence of John Mudd. John and I were sitting next to each other at dinner last week on Dr. Esparza's going away, and this issue came up. And I think it highlights the conversation that John and I had, if you don't mind me sharing just a little bit of it, is the continued hunger that people in the community have to see results. And so, you know, taking a look at the implementation plan that you put together, there's a lot of things in there that, you know, there's a lot of deadlines, right? You know, we've given ourselves goals, and we've given ourselves goals in other places, like, you know, the performance meter and so on and so forth for certain academic goals. But I think the idea is that, you know, we talked quite a bit about demonstrating that we're able to do things. We're actually doing a number of these things already. And so taking the work that you're doing and what the district has been doing and putting it out there in a way that is measurable and demonstrates what we believe to be a hypothesis that will eventually solve the opportunity achievement gaps, I think is very meaningful. And I think it's helpful that we have those deadlines out there to say that we are holding ourselves accountable. You know, we might not always like the answers that we're going to get on the efforts that we've made, but we're certainly putting ourselves out there to say that, you know, we're making the effort. And I think the key thing that I heard in one of the comments Dr. Chang made earlier here, and sorry, I don't have a question here, this is just sort of my commentary, is the notion of integration. You know, integration is a charged word when we think about, you know, the racial context, but certainly, you know, thinking about it from a practical context and thinking about the ways that we take the thought and the theory that you've articulated through the implementation plan and integrate that into the practices that we have across the district. That's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where we will inevitably start to see the change and the improvement and the closure of the gaps. And so I'm really looking forward. This is a great milestone, and I know that we're still in a draft phase right now for the implementation plan. It's helpful to have this update, but I think what I would venture others are really looking forward to is seeing how we take this and put it into practice and start to get some of that meaningful data back that tells us, you know, just how we're doing and where we need to adjust and so on and so forth. So thank you for this update. We look forward to supporting you further in this work, and go forth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locanto. Ms. Oliver Davila?
Thank you.
I ditto what everybody said. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think everybody put so much work, but especially the co-chairs. I just want to say thank you. It's hard to believe from the early meetings that there's actually something coherent, because we were like all over the place, which is absolutely normal, but seeing this is just, it's a lot of work. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Colin, because I know it was a lot that we threw on you, and I think you've handled it with grace and always have just brought such a positive spirit. So I just really want to thank you for that. And such a collaborative spirit too. You like never gave up and just kept going. So thank you. The thing that I wanted to point out that I really appreciate in our conversations, and just want to say publicly, is the inclusion of the youth piece, which I think can be included even more. But I think it's really important when we can all sit up here, but really this is about students, and so we should have student voice in everything that we do. And so even thinking about including the students in some of the professional development, you know, we went to the COSBA conference 2 years ago, if you remember that training, went to that California group of students that actually trained teachers, and the teachers talked about like what a difference it made to actually hear from students. So I think even including in that. I wanted to ask you, how many staff people are actually in your office?
Okay, this is going to be not a tricky answer, but so EFA, which is highly, I'm going to take that off the board because that's a highly funded pilot program. So next year I will have 6.
6.
Yep.
Okay. So I just wanted to say, since it's July and we keep saying we want to have like budget discussions early, is that this is a lot of work. And so I think, you know, when we start thinking about the budget and the allocations and what is important to us and how we feel different things are going to impact our entire school system, is to think about the fact that this is a really large plan. And although I like that other departments are taking a lead and collaborating and helping, that we're still going to need more people to work in the Office of Opportunity Achievement Gaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver Davila. And Dr. Rose, excellent work, as my colleagues have said, and thank you, Superintendent Chang, for being there with him, because it sends a powerful message. Part of me got very nervous when I heard 105 SMART goals, because I think when you have that many, you can't. 109, okay, thank you. When you have that many, you can't have, you know, focus on it. But what I was most intrigued by in looking through is they're actually assigned to a lot of different people. There's ownership in them, including many of the superintendents. So when we discuss the superintendent's evaluation process in a few minutes, that becomes part of it. So I love the fact that there has been, and I'm asking this more to the superintendent and Dr. Rose, has there been buy-in from department heads? And do they realize that they're going to be held accountable for these pieces? And I particularly notice, for example, like the recommendation that principals, one of the things that principals should be evaluated on is the diversity of the staff that they hire. So when we permeate this through, that's how you really make it happen. Not that you have 109 goals, Dr. Rose. You have 4. Everyone else has the 105.
So yeah, I bill my job as making everybody's job opportunity achievement gap, right? So you can't have, I don't care if I have 100 people, we can't do all of the work. And so pushing on people to think about their work through the lens of equity is the first thing that we started with. To talk to your point about what people have written down, the first thing I told them was will be a public document, and don't write anything that you cannot accomplish or you don't think you can accomplish. Which is why I really want to push to get the implementation and oversight started, because again, deadlines are coming up. We're already implementing things to Mr. Lecanto's point, we're already implementing things. So this is not something sitting on a shelf until someone stamps it. People have put down dates on goals that have passed, and they're doing work. And so I really want the oversight to start and this to become a public process, because I think, I think up front, everybody creating goals was great, right? But then, like you said, when the rubber meets the road and we have deadlines and we have targets, that's where we really see what's happening out there. And so I am excited, nervous about that, but ready to get started.
And Superintendent, Mr. Lecanto has been giving the shout-outs to Mr. Mudd, which we could all do because of how he drives us on this. I also want to give the shout-out to Reverend Groover, my predecessor as chair and our former fellow member. who said everything we do should start with opportunity achievement gap. And every decision we make, we should put through that lens. And we're not always as diligent as we could be in doing that. I think we're getting there, and I love the work that the task force did to come up with the policy, and that now you're doing with implementation, that the task force will continue to do with monitoring, similar to the ELL model, which I think is so critical, Dr. Iriarte. But Superintendent, do you feel there's buy-in across the board from your team on this? And if not, what are the obstacles to it?
So I think this work starts with changing hearts and minds first. So I appreciate the work that Dr. Rose has been doing with central office and our school leaders, because we do believe schools are units of change, to actually begin with capacity building, really doing some deep exploration around our own identity and the importance of this work. I think we're all bought into closing opportunity achievement gaps. I don't see anybody that would disagree that needs to be a mission.
It's not that, it's about the steps that we've
ultimately,
identified.
yes, it is about a commitment that this is your work. This is the work of the system. I think one of the things Dr. Rose and his team has also continuously challenged the system on is we can't just continue doing more and investing more in things that we are already doing. We actually have to radically stop doing certain things and change behavior. Say, we're not going to do A anymore, instead we are going to do B. That's a very difficult thing. That's organizational theory will tell us that organizations will resist that change, and that in order to do that, it actually takes people who become guiding coalitions and you create a volunteer army within an organization and get people to buy in small pockets, and then they take that work back to their departments. And that's what he's done. This is an organizing effort within the school system. I also want to just react to a couple of comments that school committee members have said. We have deliberately tried to put this work in certain places that will affect the rest of the system. The asset team is called Academic Student Support for Equity Team. Dr. Rose sits on that team because he is able to influence academics, special education, Office English Language Learners, social emotional learning. It was deliberate that he started there. But this work, as you can see now, is permeating throughout the system. And I think the second thing I'm going to ask as a favor to the school committee, while you hold us accountable, please also celebrate where we're getting things right, because if there is anything that behavioral science has taught us, is that we are more motivated when we are building on our strengths, things that we are doing well, and people get more inspired to do work even harder. And so that is always going to be the challenge of leadership, holding people accountable, at the same time celebrating things that they are doing so we can continue building up on wins. So I'm going to ask the school committee to also celebrate where we're getting things right so we can continue building on those wins.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for your work on this. Thank you for the task force members who assisted you and all those within the district and our outside community partners as well. We look forward to getting further updates on this as we move along. We'll move on to our next report now, a request to continue the innovation status of the Margarita Muñez Academy. At this time, I see Headmaster Danya Vasquez stepping forward. And as she makes her way up, and the superintendent makes his way back here.
I'm still tech support.
As Headmaster Vasquez makes her way up and Superintendent Chang makes her way back up, let me first, Headmaster, congratulate you on being recently named a Bar Foundation Fellow. That is a very prestigious honor in this city. I think we have several sitting in this room. Well, Miss Oliver Davila just left the room. She is one. Pastor, were you one? No? Okay. Anyone else here? Haley Shakur, oh, that's right, the co-chair. Chief Ron Dorsey has been one as well. I'm not sure if there are any others present. But congratulations on that.
Thank
and
you
enjoy
very
your
much.
sabbatical.
Thank you.
And learn much. And I now hand it over to you. Superintendent, do you have some opening comments to make?
Yes, thank you so much. Tonight, Danya Vasquez, headmaster of the Margarita Muniz Academy will request a continuation of her innovation status. The Muniz opened in August of 2012, graduating its first senior class last year. I was proud to speak at that graduation. It was a party. It was a lot of fun. It is the only dual language high school in Boston Public Schools. It is a standard for not only the state, but also for the country. The students, the graduates of Margarita Muniz received the biliteracy seal. So proud that those young people have the opportunity to get that recognition. The innovation model uses autonomies that allow the school to have their successful outcomes. And as BPS looks to expand its dual language programming over the next few years and to create feeder patterns, we will look at the Margarita Muniz as a bright spot for us to learn from. I also want to share, just like I shared with a previous school, EMK, the Margarita Muniz has also expressed interest in expanding to the 712, and more importantly, to create a direct feeder pattern with two elementary schools in Boston Public Schools, Hernandez and Hurley. Both schools have publicly expressed interest in creating a direct feeder pattern with the Muniz. The Muniz currently is one of our open enrollment schools, so it accepts students from all across the city. Many of the students that attend the Muniz actually are not proficient in Spanish and develop Spanish proficiency over the course of 4 years at this school. We believe it is really important to create coherent programming throughout the school system, and so creating that feeder pattern between the Hurley, bless you, between the Hernandez and Hurley with the Muniz is critical to driving the coherence work we need. And so with that, I thank Danya for being here, and I turn it over to you. And she is accompanied by our instructional superintendent, Jonathan Landman.
Good evening, everybody. Just take a moment to say a few more words of introduction of Headmaster Vasquez. Danya has a long and distinguished career in education. In addition to her most recent honor, prior to Muniz Academy, Danya was Associate Executive Director at the Center for Collaborative Education, or CCE, in Boston from 2001 to 2011. Focused on the leadership development, school governance, and whole school transformation work of CCE. Prior to coming to Boston, Danya served across grades K through 12 as a bilingual special education teacher, staff developer, facilitator, and principal of small schools in New York City for over 21 years. She has an MS in bilingual special education from Bank Street College and an EDD from Teachers College, Columbia University, focused on organizational development and school leadership. Even before being named a Barr Fellow for 2017, Danya's been the recipient of many awards and recognitions. For example, she was presented the UFT's Smallheiser Award in 1996, and she has been on El Planeta's Power Meter 100 list of the most influential people for Latinos for 2012, 2013, 2014, and was celebrated in 2015 with the Bank Street College Alumni Association Award for her outstanding accomplishments in the field of education. So it is an honor to sit next to her. She's a truly distinguished leader in our system. We're very lucky to have her, and turn it over to her.
Thank you. That's very humbling to hear all of that. I don't know what to say now. Thank you to the school committee, to Dr. Chang, to all of you, and to many people who are in the room tonight and who are not in the room. And usually my school staff and board members would be here, and maybe kids and parents, but they're all on vacation. So they're here in spirit, because really Muniz Academy is a community effort. And it's quite a collective of people within the school and many people beyond the school. 6 years ago, there's been a lot that's changed between when we started the school, when I started thinking about the school with the board, and today. You know, we were at Court Street. We weren't sitting here. And I was working as a headmaster on assignment for a year, and as I like to say, I met people at Ula's Cafe in JP because that was my office. And some of the school committee members helped me because they weren't school committee members at the time, and would come out to meet with me and other people. So it's really been a collective that has helped to create Muñiz Academy. And really, we look at ourselves as a learning organization, a learning community. So I want to thank lots of people who are in the room and not in the room. And as Dr. Chang said in his introduction, my task tonight is really to request an extension of our innovation status and the autonomies that come with that. Every 5 years, at the end of 5 years, we are supposed to do this, give you a report as an innovation school of our progress, and request a continuance of our work. So our mission, and I'm usually don't read my PowerPoints, but I think it's worth reading what our mission is. It's quite short and pithy. The Margarita Muñiz Academy is the first dual language high school in the Boston Public Schools dedicated to preparing citizens and leaders who are fluent in English and Spanish. Every student will be ready for college and contribute to the community and beyond. Muñiz Academy partners with families and community to realize our mission together. And really that is the core of what drives us and drives our work. And we've learned a lot over these 5 years because there really are no dual language models at the high school level. There are plenty of models at the elementary level, but very few in the country in the way that we are conceiving of doing dual language at the high school level. The mission is something that we visit at least 3 times a year, at the beginning of the year when we do our staff retreat, and then again at the end of the year. And we're always asking ourselves, are we meeting this mission? Are we getting close? Are we achieving what we've set out to do? Our innovations, status and autonomies enable that vision. I know a lot of times people think that the autonomies are the sexy part, and I think the sexy part, the important part is the vision and the mission. And the autonomies are really the tools that help us make this happen. Without it, it would be really hard to have such a unique school trying to do the kind of work that we're doing. Our work is focused on equity for all students, and we see that because all students are able to continuously learn and access content in the language that they are dominant in, whether it's English or Spanish. So they don't have to stop their learning because they're learning English or stop their learning because they're learning Spanish. Both languages are supported at the school. Everybody gets to learn in both languages, and so there's a lot of access to learning and to opportunity that's continuous. And so we think that that is our model of equity. The other thing that I want to say about being a dual language school and the idea of equity is that, in fact, lots of people are really curious about, well, how do you teach in 2 languages? And actually, what I think is more important about being a dual language school is how we attend to culture and identity. It is actually the act of recognizing the 2 languages and embracing language that allows us to have students embrace who they are, their cultural profile, and their identity. And so we've learned that over time, that really is the deeper work of the dual language model, not just simply that you walk away having been exposed to 2 languages and learning 2 languages. And I think I just wanted to say that, especially with the prior presentation, it felt appropriate to mention that. Muñiz Academy at a glance. I just want to really say a few words on who we serve. I only put a couple of lines there, and I think it's worth expanding just a little bit to say who the student population is. 83% of our students are English language learners. Of that 83%, about 50% are coded as English language learners currently levels 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. School-wide, about 20% of our kids are level 1 or 2. And so we really have what I like to call a Rubik's Cube of learners. So on one side, we have this continuum of language, so kids who are learning English for the first time, and then you have kids on the other side who are learning Spanish, because they may be Latino or not Latino, and they don't know Spanish at all, or they are heritage speakers of Spanish, exposed at home, but really never went to school to learn Spanish, and so it's kind of new to them to be in that kind of environment. And then kids who are in the middle. And so that's one sort of dimension, and the other dimension is the academic dimension. So we have kids, just like every Boston high school, who they walk in the door and they're college ready, and you're wowed by them. And then we have kids who you're equally wowed because they have other skills, and they are also not academically where they should be. They are not at 9th grade level. And so we really have that other side of the dimension of who we work with as in our students. 40% of our students are over age, so very few of them are 14, really, when they come into 9th grade. So we also take students in based on their assignment, who they, how they choose us on the BPS assignment process. So we're not asking students to be proficient in one language or the other. What we do ask is that they come with the willingness and the passion to learn in both languages. And that really is the prerequisite to being in our school. And so that really opens us up to being, any student, any family can join the community. With that, I just want to point to the past 5 years of progress. We started out in our first full set of MCAS in 2015, and you can see the numbers up there where we did fairly well. And then we went down a little bit last year, and particularly in math, and so we're paying a lot of attention to math. In math in particular, we had 14 students that didn't pass, and of the 14, 7 of them were English learners level 1 or 2. 3 of them had just joined the school that year as 10th graders. And so, they're small pools of numbers, right? And a few numbers can make a big statistical change. So we know that those 7 kids made an impact on the one hand, and then there were another 7 kids that, quite frankly, should have passed, and I'll just say it that way. And they did so the next November. But we are looking at math and questioning, what's the challenge in math, in our instruction and for kids and how they're coming in. So we've been really digging deeply and thinking hard about math instruction at the school. We're pending data for this year. ELA looks pretty good. Not sure about math again for this year because that data is not yet complete. And then another way of looking at, well, that's some of our progress. And then in the next slide, I just wanted to talk about some of the challenges. We have a big vision, a small school, and a small school budget. And so we're trying to do a great deal with really a constrained budget. And that's probably true of every school in Boston. I don't think we're different in that regard. Our school model does include an extensive arts program, and I don't want to neglect to say that. And so we're doing dual language using the arts, expeditionary learning, and technology. And because we believe in those anchors as the vehicle to learning multiple languages, it costs more, and so that's a challenge. As I said earlier, one of the challenges is serving a wide continuum of language and skill needs. And so it really takes a lot of careful planning in terms of scheduling kids and thinking about instruction and really being creative constantly on a wide variety of levels. Attendance and tardies continue to be a challenge. I think that's a challenge, again, that a lot of my colleagues express. Jonathan and I have talked a lot about it over the past couple of years. And we're still working at it. And I did talk about math as one of our instructional challenges at the moment. And then in terms of impact, I like to look at it, so what happens when they graduate? And one of the things that we're doing, and we started this last year, with the help of Sam Acevedo and the Higher Education Resource Center, he's one of our partners. Shout out to Sam. We have established an alumni support program, so that our belief is that once students graduate from Muñiz, they're not really done with us. We want to follow them. We want to make sure they have some level of support as they move on wherever they're going, whether it's college, career. We want to keep in touch with them. And so we have staff on board from our partners and other collaborations that really follow the kids once they leave us, to do check-ins, and we meet with our partners every 6 weeks to really track what's happening with kids. And that's still a work in progress, but the list that you see up there are some of the places that kids have actually gone to. There are many more, the list is longer where they have been accepted to, but this is where kids have ended up going. The other partner that we discovered this year was Mass Rehab, to work with some of our special needs students who also need really some specific, more detailed work in terms of the supports once they leave Muñiz. And so we're really happy to have found the Mass Rehab. And I didn't write them down there, so I wanted to shout them out. Some of the strategies for success are there. I think our innovation status has been key, having those autonomies that allow us to really think about the right match for staff, and being able to find staff wherever they may be. And our staff is really representative, and most have come from within BPS, but some from beyond BPS. And how we think about hiring staff is really important. How we use the budget is really important, that allows us to create the kind of school that we have. A focus on cultural competence, and that's really embedded in the work that we're doing, has been extremely important to us. Knowing students well, and we do that in a variety of ways. We have CREW, which is our version of advisory. But it's a little deeper than the typical advisory. Is really important. It's a really big part of our school. And I think any teacher can describe and tell you a lot about the students they work with. And then when students move on to the next grade, that teacher will probably still have a relationship and be able to still tell you something about that student. Authentic learning experiences through expeditionary learning practices. That's really core in terms of how we've shaped the curriculum. And as I talked about earlier, the 2 years of postgraduate alumni support. And a very active professional learning community. So staff meet every Friday for 2 hours, and during the week they meet in common planning time and grade, and in content teams. And so there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, and we know that that is crucial to making the school work. So over the next 5 years, as I look ahead, the things that we want to keep are all there, the things that we've talked about. And I will also say that while we're keeping those things, we're still refining them. We're still learning how to do them better. And we want to deepen an intensive focus on math and language literacy. We are part of the Evidence-Based Argumentation and the Debate League, and that's been really terrific. We started that work last year, and it's been really, really very fruitful. And so we want to really leverage that work across all the grades. We want to deepen our college and career work, and really thinking hard about some pathways that we've started some of the preliminary thinking around how do we create some pathways. So for example, this year we are starting a medical interpretation course, and students that participate can gain a certification. And so we're thinking about some other pathways that could lead to those kinds of certifications. We have several students that have expressed an interest in teaching, and so that's a pathway. And so there are 3 or 4 other pathways that we're really exploring as something to sort of lay out some tracks in the next few years. And then we were really focused on executive functioning skills, raíces, and mindset. I think for the kids who are most struggling, it isn't just that they're struggling from content, but they're struggling out of what their habits are, their mindset. That's really what we keep coming back to when we're around the table and asking ourselves, why is this student just still having such a hard time? We keep coming back to that. So we're really thinking deeply about what more can we do around particularly executive functioning skills and mindset in working with our students. And so our request is an extension of the autonomies to continue the work. Those are the autonomies that we have, that we use, and that are particularly important to us in creating our school. And in the fall, we're prepared to bring a full innovation proposal and hope to align it to the Build BPS work and your consideration for approval. So with that, I'll leave you with some questions. What excites you? What questions do you have? And what will get you on board? And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Headmaster Vasquez. And just to be clear, the request is for a one-year extension of the innovation plan, particularly with regards to the autonomies you have around staffing,
Correct.
budget, curriculums, calendar, et cetera, while you work on the full renewal of the innovation plan, particularly to align with Build BPS.
Yes.
Excellent,
correct.
great. Thank you. Open it up now to questions and comments from members. Mr. Lecanto?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Just a quick thought. Thinking about the work that goes on in other dual language schools at the elementary level and the work that the Muniz and your staff has conducted alongside the staffs of those schools, how does that fit in, if at all, in your concept of this innovation plan? And I think some of this might actually feed into a broader, longer-term innovation plan that you're looking to come back to speak to us about. But nevertheless, I'd like to understand a little bit more about how that fits in here.
How all three schools would work together?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Well, we work together over the years in terms of even how I've built the school with my staff. It's been really going back to my colleagues, how does it work at the Hernandez? How does it work at the Hurley? So they've been really great teachers to me. And I think that our approach to teaching and learning is very similar. And we share our dual language policies, and we share our work, and we've gone to visit each other's schools to give feedback. In terms of sort of the logistics of how we conceive, being able to work together in the future, if I were to expand, is that what you mean?
Yes.
So the way we're thinking about that is that Muniz Academy could assume their 7th and 8th grade students, but that would then allow them to have more seats at the elementary grades, which I think is a desire all over, that we have more seats at the elementary grades. I think it also, for us in particular at Muniz Academy, we are really interested in figuring out, what we're trying to do is really huge, right? To teach 2 languages when kids are 13, 14, 15 years old. They're coming to us at a particular, adolescent stage. And many of them kind of look at us and go, really? Are you sure we're doing physics and Spanish? That was just yesterday, right? He's not doing that again today. And so we're asking kids and teachers, all of us, to do a lot in a really short amount of time. And so we believe that 7th and 8th grade would help us, give us more time for the language learning. Research tells us that it takes 5 to 7 years to learn another language well, and we're trying to do this sometimes in 2 years because students come to us at 11th grade or 10th grade. And so that's part of what the 3 schools are thinking about, is how do we reinforce dual language citywide. I think it's something that the district has just in a wonderful way supported, the idea you're, opening up a Haitian Creole school, the support you've given Muniz Academy, et cetera. It will afford seats at the younger grades for them, and it will give Muniz Academy the opportunity to strengthen what we're doing academically, linguistically, in the arts, And then I think there's a lot of sharing that the three schools do now that we would continue to do. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about. So that's really the why.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
helpful just to sort of like fill in the background, and,
Yeah.
Bigger picture as we think about, just the interim plan and then the larger plan going forward. And I mean, my only other comment will be that, I've always been such a fan of your school. And,
Thank you.
Anytime I visit, it's amazing. I think the first visit I had was as a principal for a day, and the first class I walked into, there was a lesson on, I think it was something that amounted to liberation theology in Spanish. You know, and I was just impressed that I could actually pick up that much. That's what 9 years of school
I'm impressed you remember.
will get you, I suppose, even though I can't speak an entire sentence today. But in any case, just that's one example, and thinking about all of the times that the school has stepped forward for work with partners like A26 and the high school redesign work that that the school has done. I think you're a great asset to our system.
Thank you.
And a real jewel for our students. So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it and look forward to your work continuing.
Thank you. The jewel is really the students.
Thank you, Mr. Lecanto. And as we move to other members, I know we all have great admiration from the school. I just want to remind our fellow members, we have another presentation tonight, and Superintendent Chang and I will be racing each other to the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning. So if we can keep this succinct as possible, that would be great, because
Tough crowd.
it's a tough crowd.
You need some
right?
shut-eye.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. Dean Robinson.
The 40%.
Thank you. You keep me in this seat to keep the train running on time. Doing my job.
Aye, Captain. Yes, sir. The 40% over age, what do the students come in with? Is there a confidence gap? Is there a gap that needs to be filled? And what do you all do to identify and fill the gaps?
It's a long conversation, and we were just given marching orders. I'll
We
be
were
succinct.
given marching orders.
Students are coming in at all different ways, right? Some are immigrant students who are coming from their country, so they're coming a little older. Some have been retained prior. There are all sorts of reasons. Students are changing from schools. Maybe we've retained kids. So there are all kinds of reasons why we have kids who are older in general. And I think it is hard to be a new immigrant to the country learning another language, and you're older and you land in a new school.
Right.
And so there's a lot to unpack there.
Right.
And there's a lot that we do, so you're going to have to come on down
Okay,
and visit.
I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm coming. Besides the graduation, because that was amazing. My other question is confidence gap, cultural gap with the parents and educating and helping them navigate the landscape for their child.
So we don't have a cultural gap in terms of understanding the culture of the families, right?
No, the culture of education.
Of education, yeah.
educational culture,
That's a huge lift. For some families, they're right with us, and there isn't a gap. And for other families, this is a heavy lift because they have a lot of other concerns and worries. And so we do lots of counseling. We do a lot of family outreach. It's a whole host of things. Having crew, so kids that are connected to families. A teacher, is a liaison to families is important. So there's a lot of things that we do, and we're not always successful because our kids are coming with a lot of challenges, a lot of different challenges, a lot of assets, but a lot of life challenges.
Well, I can't wait to visit because I'd like to unpack just best practices and strategies, not just for your school, but many of the schools that support many of our students of various backgrounds. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
I encourage that to happen, Dean Robinson. It's a special feeling walking around that school with Headmaster Vasquez. The students, the relationships, it's a special feeling.
I want to strengthen my Spanish a little bit before
Yeah.
I get
Dr. Uriarte. Dr. Uriarte.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this, and thank you for addressing some of the questions that I sent to you. But you didn't talk about the space issue, and I see it sort of hidden here in the Build BPS goals.
Ask me the question. What
Status.
the status of the space? So we share right now with Mission Hill, and we have figured out how to cohabitate in the building so that neither one of us can grow anymore because there's no more space, but neither, we're fine as is, as a 9-12 and they as a K-8. And so we figured it out. If we remained a 9-12, we'd be okay there. We're tight, as I think every school would love to have more space to do more groovy stuff. Our classrooms, our teachers share classrooms and do that kind of thing. But we figured out how to really maximize the space that we have. Yeah.
And what are you're looking in the Build BPS process to get a school that
well,
will allow you to add
we
more
were,
grades?
Let me,
Yeah,
Dr.
sure.
Vasquez, let me please
Sure.
address that. So as currently, the school cannot expand to a 7-12 on its current location. And we do not have a solution at this moment. And so that is why we have to go through the process, the Build BPS process, to determine how we are going to help this school be expand to the 7-12. That is the goal, but we do not have a solution at this moment. And that is why we've asked the school to come back for the final approval of its charter in order so we can lay out the entire plan for how we become, how we help support the school to become a 7-12. But we do not have a solution at this point.
Why? No building? What is the reason there's no solution?
We do not have facilities that would be adequate for a high school 7-12 program at this moment. And so we just don't have a solution. But we're going to have to look for one.
That's the purpose of the Build BPS plan. This is challenges we have across the district, particularly with schools that have 2 programs located into it. This is, a decision several years ago. We co-located a number of schools, and it has turned out to be a challenge that we've addressed on a case-by-case basis. This is the most recent one. And I have sat in the meeting with Headmaster Vasquez and her counterpart at Mission K-8 and their school boards, right? And I think it was Mr. McDonough and I at the time, and you worked out a solution, and we toured the school together. And interestingly, it was the first time not you, but your school boards had been in each other's schools. I found that fascinating when I walked around with them. So you have worked out a great arrangement with them, but they're both strong schools that we would like to see opportunities to expand, and this is part of Build BPS trying to figure out these solutions. Ms. Robinson?
Most of my, well, actually, both of my questions were answered already, so I'm not going to.
Excellent, thank
I have
you.
a different question, but I won't ask it tonight. No, I'll pass on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Oliver Davila? No? Excellent.
Great
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you for your work on this. The committee members, as you get from the expressions, I think you're doing wonderful work.
Thank you.
You and your team are doing wonderful work at the school, and we look forward to taking action on this request at our next meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll move on to our,
That will be in September.
yes,
Okay.
which fits for you fine.
Yes.
Move on to our final report this evening, an update on the superintendent's school year 2016-17 performance evaluation process. This time I'll turn things over to Dean Robinson, who has been leading this process on behalf of the committee. Dean Robinson?
Thank you, Chairman O'Neill. Team, as you see the memo in front of you, it just outlines the timeline that we've taken thus far, the work that's been done behind the scenes, but also here in school committee. In February, we presented the review of the superintendent's performance goals from his last evaluation cycle and asked the committee for feedback. I'm very encouraged by the process the superintendent has taken to hold himself accountable to the goals of the strategic implementation plan. So it's really critical when we have a guiding document such as the strategic implementation plan to guide the work. Then in April, I presented the consideration for the 4 standards, 10 potential indicators, and 20 elements. As we discussed in that meeting, there were indicators that were more appropriate for a first-year superintendent versus a second-year superintendent, and so 2 were removed. The superintendent presented his SMART goals, and each goal is aligned with the strategic implementation plan initiative. Now that the school year has come to a close and we have a little bit of breathing room, it's now time the superintendent is collecting the artifacts so that the month of August will be our opportunity to potentially vacation, yes, but to also stop by the school committee office as often as you are able to review the artifacts that the superintendent will submit to us. He and I will work together to establish a timeline so that you all will have time to review. And if I recall, because my birthday is September 1st, I do recall sending emails before my birthday asking that my birthday present from you all be that you send in your reviews.
Subtle, subtle.
Just a
When's your
little
birthday?
subtle. September 1st.
Okay, everyone get that?
So that's just a not so subtle hint
Right after I come back
that I
from
would like
vacation.
to have that as I would like to enjoy my birthday
Put this in my calendar right
without communicating to you all. So at the September 6th meeting, which is why you received that pre-birthday message from me, I will provide the committee with another update. By that time, we would have been able to have the time to review the artifacts and also have the time to not just review the artifacts, but assess the work performance. And you'll need to complete your evaluation report. So that's why you will have the correspondence from me, from Liz, and with a strong, encouraging push from our chair supporting me before my birthday. And then upon completion, I will gather all the documents and prepare the composite evaluation for discussion at our September 20th meeting. And if you can just highlight these dates because they are really critical. The September meetings will be providing the updates. It will continue to provide opportunities to prepare the composite evaluation. But we will request that the vote of the superintendent's final performance rating be scheduled for October 4th. So we want to go into the new school year having had this completed, which is why we do want to have the review during the month of August, preferably. So please note, as we've stated before, that the composite evaluation will be prepared and discussed, and all individual evaluations are public documents.
And to throw one wrinkle in your request, I'm sorry for not highlighting this before, but we are actually, Ms. Sullivan is in the middle, I believe, of polling all the members about changing the September 20th meeting to either the 13th or the 27th, because September 20th, Rosh Hashanah starts at sundown that evening. And we have, in the past, always tried to not have a meeting during the Jewish holidays. So I think Ms. Sullivan is in the middle of polling members individually about either the 13th or the 27th. So just reflect the fact that whichever one it switches to, if we do switch it, that was when, it'll be at that meeting that Dean Robinson will present the composite evaluation.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Dr. Chain, do you have any comments just in regards to your timeline of submitting the artifacts or?
This timeline absolutely works. I am in the process of gathering all the artifacts. I will be on a short vacation, but upon my return, all the artifacts will be ready to go.
And the beauty of this process is, having done this last year using the state's guidelines, everyone here is somewhat familiar with the process. And so if there are additional questions that members have, you can either reach out to me or, of course, Liz Sullivan is our go-to expert in all things.
And I do want to note, channeling Dean Coleman, who could not be with us this evening, he would, if he was, he would here be requesting that also in September and early in the fall, we're talking about the full year school goals for
Yes.
next year, not waiting until later in the process. So we need to add that into the process as well.
Are there any questions for the committee, from the committee?
I would just like, you can just send us an email, but if we can just have a sense of when the artifacts are ready, that would be really great. Thank you.
Any other questions or
I
comments?
just had a different question from this, with regard to the state. We're one of the largest districts, so in terms of
The largest.
We are the
district.
largest in
So
Madison.
is there anything that talks, as I look at some of these objectives, it's different in a district that only would have a half a dozen schools. How do you begin?
That's what we
to-
struggled with last year.
Right, so I mean, in terms of the equity around how you would begin to evaluate or think about these issues when we've got a very different looking district that have some of these things. Is there any
Well,
recommendations
it's
or
interesting because the superintendent just spent time this week with his fellow urban superintendents in Massachusetts. So Fall River, New Bedford, Springfield, Worcester, I'm assuming, right? So Framingham's actually a fairly good-sized district. Obviously, none of them are our size. But I think any of those districts struggle with that issue, which is why we have the flexibility to choose the indicators and rubrics that we want to use within the framework, and we can personalize it a little bit. I'm sure, Dean Robinson, do you have some additional comments on that?
I do. One of the critical, I believe, critical components that Dr. Chang put in place upon his arrival was really assessing the teams and the organizational design of the work that needs to get done. And so the strategic implementation plan is, I think, a result of him really doing a great assessment. And I know I'm doing a bit of a pre-review before the review, but there are some, I believe, some key indicators that the teams and the work has been set up well so that as we're evaluating his performance and as he's evaluating his performance, which last year we did push, and Chairman O'Neill really kind of led the charge in encouraging Dr. Chang to evaluate himself as well and be reflective as a leader. Yes, we have districts that are similar in size and scope, but our systems that have been set up, here's a case in point, in listening to the presentation earlier from Dr. Rose, I couldn't help but note so many similarities from the work that has been set up from that department to the work that Dr. Chang has been leading over the last year. And so seeing the alignment of that work, Dr. Rose, his team looks great, the work looks great, the task force is looking great, but in essence, it's really helping to bolster Dr. Chang looking great as well as a leader. And so one of the key components that I think that Chairman O'Neill has brought up is we're evaluating Dr. Chang. We know the breadth of this work. We know the difficulty, the complexity, but we are evaluating him and his performance, and he's aware of that. And so as a leader, he is also leading the charge to evaluate and organize his team well.
But it is a challenge, Ms. Robinson, to use a state matrix that is designed for just as much where a school district where they talk about their high school and their middle school,
Yeah.
right, and make it fit an evaluation process for this. It's just something we have to take into account as we're doing it and know we're thinking in terms of the breadth of our district.
May I just quickly comment
Yes.
on it? The grading size is different, so I actually share with the team that this evaluation is actually the evaluation of the entire team's work.
Right.
And we celebrate that together. So when it says like models for administrators, how to reflect on the effectiveness of interactions with faculty and students and uses data research, like I sometimes don't get into that grading size where I'm doing professional development for principals. However, it is very clear that we do that as a team. So instructional superintendents and chief of schools and thinking about the work of all the assistant superintendents are still in the audience, they are modeling this.
Right.
And I'm modeling that for my direct reports and the entire BPS cabinet. So it may not have to, you don't have to take every single word for what it is. You can think about grading size and consider grading size. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Dean Robinson? Thank you, Dean Robinson, for leading this effort on our behalf, and this will be at each of our next 3 meetings. This will be on our agenda.
Yes.
So thank you. The September 6th, either the 13th or the 27th, whatever works out for the most of the members, and then scheduled for a vote on October 6th, which is the same format we used last year.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment and report. Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. We have 2 speakers, beginning with Reverend Willie Broderick, and he'll be followed by John Mudd.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you to Superintendent Chang and to Chairperson O'Neill and to the school committee. Thank you for having me here on today. Again, my name is Reverend Willie Broderick II. I am a proud Roxbury resident. I've been a proud Roxbury resident for the past 6 years. I also serve as the assistant pastor of the historic 12th Baptist Church, as well in my state capacity as the outreach coordinator for the Office of the Attorney General, Mar Healy. But today I'm here in my capacity as chairperson of the Boston Network for Black Student Achievement, and I want to thank Dr. Rose for his comprehensive presentation on the Opportunity and Achievement Gap Plan. BNBSA was founded based on an unfaltering commitment to recapture in our young people the excellence that is exemplified by Black scholars and achievers of yesterday and today. It is the network's mission to examine and to monitor, as well as advocate for system-wide policies, organizational structures, and educational practices that will promote the achievement and development of Black students enrolled in Boston Public Schools. In the community, we also look to utilize this method as well to build support within our own institutions and to further our goal to ensure our support for Black students in Boston Public Schools. Given the mission of our work, we actually want to continue to work closely, as well as to let you know, the superintendent, this district, as well as this committee, and the Opportunity Achievement Gap, that this work is extremely important to us. Implementing the Achievement Gap policy needs to move forward with a sense of urgency. BNBSA believes that in order to eliminate the opportunity and achievement gaps, a systemic approach is required. The completed implementation plan must engage strategies that have system-wide impact, as opposed to a pilot or small program approaches that benefit certain schools or a fraction of the students who need these opportunities and services. Systemic impact is critical to the academic success and development of Black students that are currently in Boston Public Schools. BNBSA plans to be actively engaged with the district to support, advocate, as well as push back where warranted, and build community opportunities to support excellence in education for Black students currently in our system. At this time, we believe and suggest that the Achievement Gap impact statements and analysis on the policies recommended to the school committee should be reviewed and approved with comments by the Opportunity and Achievement Gap Office and the Office of Equity to ensure that the maximum equity lens is applied to the analysis and all the work is aligned to the implementation plan.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, I won't be long. We have not yet the opportunity to comprehensively review this most recent iteration of the implementation plan, but we are looking forward to reviewing it in the full and completed version, and we look for as well to see that completed version as soon as possible. After this review, we will come back to the school committee with our thoughts, our support as well, and suggestions. As we move forward, we strongly urge the school committee and the mayor to exercise the political will and commitment to provide the leadership required to effectively fund and implement the policies undergirding the elimination of the opportunity and achievement gap. We further advocate that the accountability in this system is explicit in the plan and support the work required to realize this goal. We look forward to working closely with Boston Public Schools, with this superintendent and this committee as we continue to advocate for this work. Last but not least, I hear the alarm going off, but I want to make sure that we add that this presentation that was presented today, which was comprehensive, actually happens also in the fall during the school year, so that parents, community members, as well as other advocates are able to see this presentation and be able to participate in making sure that this implementation goes forward. Thank you very much, and I hope you all have a blessed night.
Thank you, Reverend.
John Mudd, unless you forgot. I think with the report tonight, we are at a turning point in terms of addressing this achievement gap issue. And my sense is that we have a choice of how far we want to go, how far we're going to turn this billion-dollar ship, and we've built a kind of foundation. I think Dr. Rose's seriousness, his commitment to what he calls targeted universalism and addressing the concerns of and needs of marginalized students, of Blacks, Latinos, ELLs, SPED students, is critically important. I think my sense is that he has changed the dialogue with many of the departments, but it's a foot in the door. I think the chair's question about the buy-in of the departments is extremely important. And my sense is that the plans that they have developed are vary dramatically in quality, and that it needs really serious continued attention to ensure that we build on the momentum that Dr. Rose has started, and that we don't relax and say, great report, and we'll wait till the next go around. It's got to have continued pressure. I think that there needs to be this kind of addressing both of departmental but also of interdepartmental issues. The diversity of staff cuts across all departments. Professional development cuts across all departments. And that there's a matrix in this plan, but how that matrix really translates into collegial cooperative action, it will be critically important in addressing most of those complex issues. I think there needs to be a revision in the statement of what the achievement gap impact statement should encompass. The policy says that, I don't use too much time, but the achievement gap impact statement will give an explicit examination of how the report or policy will help or hinder eliminating gaps and increase or decrease opportunities for students of colors, English language learners, students with disabilities, and students of low-income status. That calls for a level of specificity, it seems to me, that is not yet encompassed in the equity statements that you're receiving.
30 seconds.
I'm concerned, how much?
30 seconds.
I'm concerned that the subcommittee structure, in terms of monitoring the ongoing departmental actions, may need the addition of some expertise in order to really address the complicated issues that we're now going to be facing. I'm concerned that the staffing in the office of the Achievement Assistant Director, it's not a matter of the number of the staff. I'm concerned, and Colin Rose knows this, that he has a lot of programmatic staff, and he is the leverage of the superintendent and you to change what I've called this billion-dollar super tanker, and he needs to have the staff to push that issue. So thank you for hearing me, and let's not relax. Let's keep pushing. I would just suggest that this committee might want to look at some selected issues like the cultural proficiency or literacy or professional development or staff diversity, and have some in-depth discussions every other month so that the issue keeps coming before everyone. And I really appreciate the superintendent being down here, and lending his symbolic presence and support to this issue. I think for this system, that's crucially important. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mudd, and thank you for pushing us on this issue. The committee has heard your input over the years.
That concludes our speakers for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Under new business, Superintendent, I did note that we did speak extensively about Dr. Esparza earlier this evening, and yet you've had 2 members of your senior team leave. So I didn't know if you want to say anything briefly about Ms. Ramos as well.
Yes, Miss Lydia Ramos, who joined the Boston Public Schools team as my senior advisor, also made a decision to transition from Boston Public Schools. I believe she wrote all of you, so all of you are aware. Miss Lydia Ramos is returning back to Los Angeles to get married and actually engage in the next phase of her life. I'm also very deeply appreciative of the support she's providing me directly, explicitly around my work externally, the work of the executive cabinet, and just being a friend and colleague as we do this difficult work. And so I celebrate her and wish her the best as she engages in the next phase of her life. And thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Thank you. Any other new business? Hearing none, that concludes our business for this evening. The next school committee meeting will take place on Wednesday, September 6th at 6 p.m. If there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Looks like unanimous consent. Good night and have a restful summer. Superintendent, enjoy your vacation for a couple of days.